It is 6:30, so we'll call this meeting to order. If you please conduct the roll.
President Holt,
Present.
Clerk Grigsby,
Present.
Trustee Brickler,
Present.
Trustee Wedge,
Present.
Trustee Ross.
And is there any public comment on the closed session agenda items tonight? All right.
There's no public comment.
Okay. Seeing none, then we will recess the closed session at 6:30 and we will come back at 7 o'clock. So we will reconvene in open session. Clerk Grigsby, if you wouldn't mind leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Absolutely. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You guys had it all right.
Thank you.
So, moving to 5B, action taken in closed session. In a vote of 4-0, in a 4-0 vote, the student named in student discipline case 2023-9-28 is not readmitted to the district at this time. However, the board will reconsider this at the regular July board meeting if the student completes item 5 of the rehabilitation plan. The vote was 4-0 with one abstention of Trustee Ross. Moving to item 5C, approval of the agenda. I move that we approve tonight's agenda.
I'll second.
All right, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? All right, seeing none, motion carries. And we'll start with 6A, the annual update on the English Learner Master Plan.
Rachel Krinkle, our district teacher on special assignment, or we say TOSA, will present information on the English Learner Master Plan and the program itself.
And then I can yell louder. Yeah, the microphone's for Zoom, so I'll yell for everybody here. And then the microphone's, Rachel, you could just hold down the button on the microphone until the ring turns red. Okay. So you gotta hold it though. There you go. Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
So if you couldn't hear me, this is Rachel Tingle. She is our EL TOSA. That TOSA stands for Teacher on Special Assignments. And she's presenting tonight on our English Learner Master Plan and our English Learner Program.
Good. Thank you. Good evening, President Holt, trustees. Okay. I'll try and project.
Gonna project, but it doesn't.
This is the Zoom mic. Gotcha. Okay.
Is it illegal for her to turn and face them
This is
or
presentation for the board.
presentation?
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Tonight, I'm going to give you a brief overview of the changes that were made to the master plan for English learners this year. And then I'll go on to an explanation of the job I was hired to do this year and some of the accomplishments of Auburn Union's English learners. To begin with, you're all familiar with the AUSD Master Plan for English Learners that was drafted and approved by the board back in 2021, I think. The document is very comprehensive, and there were not a lot of changes this year that needed to be made. Oh, Dave, can you go back? Thank you. The first thing I did was updated the mission statement to reflect the current board adopted version. I changed the school names and positions that are current in AUSD now. I updated the responsibilities to reflect those that have been acquired by the EL TOSA position. And I updated the reclassification criteria to include additional options for English learners to reclassify with current and new programs that we will be adopting. Okay, thanks. And now I'll give you a little overview of what I have done this year. Go ahead. Thank you. This is what our English learner population looks like. It looked like in December of 2023 and here in June of 2024. We had a current English learner population of 215 English learners without non-public schools, which equated to 14.3% of our students in AUSD are English learners. And those are the counts per school. 111 at Auburn Elementary and 1 to be determined. 42 at Skyridge with 4 TBDs and 62 at Kane with 3 TBDs. In June, at the end of the school year, we ended with 242 English learners with 4 at non-public schools. 16% of our students in AUSD are English learners. 126 at Auburn Elementary, 44 at Skyridge, and 68 at Kane. These are a few of the responsibilities that I took on this year. among others. To highlight, I helped teachers with ELD resources, identification of students, and some newcomer support. Principals, I assisted with the schedules, Williams visits, and walkthroughs in which we kind of checked on classrooms to see what strategies they were using for English learners. The biggest part of my job is the LPAC, which is the initial LPAC in the fall with students that have not been in the country or in school, public school, and then the summative LPAC where all students who are deemed English learners will take. I did a lot of data management. I learned a lot about different programs, Aries, Tom's, Elevation, which I'll touch on in a minute. SIRS, I was part of the iReady team that we are going to adopt for our diagnostic, and Renaissance, which we will be getting rid of. Family and community, the ELAC was a big part of my job as well. And we had ELACs at 2 schools this year. I was a big part of the Ed Services team and maintained the master plan. FPM was a big part of my job too. We did very well with that, and I'll touch on that in a minute. And then compliance. Okay, successes this year. We had this year 17 students reclassify at E.V. Kane, which is fantastic. And 11 at Auburn Elementary and 7 at Skyridge. This is a big accomplishment. So, right, for everybody. That was a big feat. We had 16 LTELs, which are long-term English learners, and we wanted to make sure that we got those students reclassified before they moved on to Placer. So we did the preliminary implementation of Elevation, which is a program which we'll use for compliance next year, and we will be able to track English learners and test scores and all information regarding English learners. We had 2 active ELACs at Auburn Elementary and E.V. Kane, and especially Auburn Elementary, we had a very robust ELAC, and they had lots of things to say, and it was a really great group. We did on-time completion at both initial and summative LPAC test administration, and we had 0 findings for our FPM program audit for English learners.
Well done.
Which is great. I'm sorry. An English learner is a student that is not fluent in English and it's not their first language. Mm-hmm. Oh, English learner is a student that English is not their first language and they are learning English. Okay, looking ahead. What I'd like to focus on for next year in this job is ongoing staff training for integrated and designated ELD in the classrooms. Our LTELs, those are long-term English learners in which they have been in school for 6 years or longer without reclassifying. Our students who are SPED and English learners, I would like to take a closer look at their circumstances and what's preventing them from reclassifying. Ongoing program compliance with English learners. There's a lot of regulations and things that you're supposed to follow with the California Department of Education. Also a newcomer support protocol for families, teachers, staff, and students. I'm working with the county right now to put together a program for newcomers that supports their families and gives information for community resources, school resources, etc. And I would really like to see an active ELAC at all 3 schools next year and really enhance the meetings and encourage new membership. Any questions?
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Great job this year, by the way.
Thank you.
What are some of the biggest challenges going next year that if you have identified them yet, and as far as being proactive and addressing those?
Probably our LTEL population. I really want to make sure that those students are getting the time that they need and the practice they need in the English language, and to get them reclassified before they attend high school, because they really start missing out on things when they attend high school and they're English learners. And then again, the SPED population too. I just want to make sure that, you know, there's equity across the board with SPED and English learners, making sure that they're getting equal chance in succeeding.
Thank you.
Trustee Ross. First of all, MVP player at the kickball game. I just have to shout out at Auburn Elementary. Miss Krinkle was the MVP and really helped the staff kick it off. So congratulations. And then my question and congratulations on all you do. I've seen you in and out of the schools. I've seen the way that children smile when you walk into their presence. I see how comfortable you make our students feel. And I really want to acknowledge that you put a lot of heart and soul into what you do. And I see you. I know other people see you as well. So congratulations on all your accomplishments. My question is, it's for financials. Are we seeing a difference in our financials of a classified student or a reclassified student and not? Like, what is the difference in financials?
You know what, I might have to defer to Jeremy on that one. Is or Heather.
Do we? No. I mean, as far as our ADA or any extra funding that we receive.
Oh, unduplicated. Are they still
Unduplicated? Are
when
they?
reclassify?
I wouldn't have that information. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, but we can look.
That
I
is a
think-
very good question.
I want to say it depends probably on the individual.
Oh, absolutely.
Correct.
I think you're just probably looking for like if we have an idea of how many.
Are
Our
we
s-
spending more money on reclassifying these students because we're putting more resources towards them and then we don't have to put all those resources? So are we like in the long term saving money every time we reclassify a student?
Well, just to keep in mind that we receive funding for students by that have additional needs or requirements. So let's say our funding per unduplicated student, you know, it could be that we have so many English learners, so we have this much Title III funding or right. And so you know, if we have students who are low income or foster youth or homeless, the money that goes toward our unduplicated population can be for any of those categories.
Okay.
And then that money comes to us in a variety of packages, such as title, which is federal funding, or supplemental concentration, which is state funding and that type of thing. So
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
you.
So wait, before you go, I had a question for you too.
Yes.
President Holt. So one, curious, how many newcomers do you see in the program in a typical year? You know, over the course of the school year after they start?
So this year I had 66 students that took the initial LPAC, which meant that they were first time in school or new to country. 8 of those students tested as IFEPs. So that means that they were initially fluent and were not in the program.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
I have one more question.
Oh, you bet.
I noticed how much the population had changed from
Yes.
December 23 to June 24. So, and that you had a lot of growth in the program and also that there were a number of students who were placed in non-public schools. And I guess I know we can't get into specifics out of confidentiality, but I'm just wondering about, I know we have these rising special education costs. So are these are new students who have come to us who needed an NPS placement perhaps?
No,
Okay.
these students are NPS students that needed to take the summative LPAC. So they actually, the students that we have at NPS, for the most part are LTELs.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
So they've been in an NPS and we've just kind of identified
Yeah.
or
They have
wouldn't
been
say-
identified their
Okay.
entire career, but since they are placed there, we're still responsible for testing.
okay.
So they were tested.
So it's not that there were 4 new NPS placements. That's a relief.
No,
Okay. Thank you
no,
for
no, sorry,
clarifying.
That
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
confusing.
No, I really
No, no, no.
appreciate all your hard work. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Okay, thanks.
Okay, and item 6B, the annual update on the AUSD's instructional coach program. And real quick before we get to that, as far as asking questions to the speaker, if there's a question you want to ask, please ask it before we can offer public comment. So at this time, if somebody has public comment on this agenda item, please introduce it now. But otherwise, we don't want to get into a dialogue back and forth between everybody and the speaker. So that was why. What?
Which is that there's a lot of acronyms being used that are still, I mean, normal for you folks, but if you could just maybe try to clarify something that.
That's a great request. So going forward tonight, let's try to at least say what the acronym is before we use it. So thanks. And then,
And louder.
okay, so and then we're going to try to stop the back and forth because we've got to get through our agenda. Thank you. All right, so the annual update.
Kara Schwint and Emily Clark Vivier, our instructional coaches, will present to the board on the instructional coaching program.
Hi there, I'm Emily Clark Vivier.
And I'm Kara Schwint. We're here on behalf of the AUSD Instructional Coaching Program, and we're going to do an overview of the 23-24 school year. Good evening. Thank you for having us.
Yes. thank
Dave?
you. Okay, the instructional coaching program empowers and supports teachers. It provides opportunities for reflection, professional growth, collaboration, and effective practices while building the capacity to improve the student achievement.
The logo you see there was birthed the year the program was birthed, which is 21-22. So just quickly going through all the little compartments of what makes up the coaching program. So on the far left, you see a picture of 3 people. That's to represent collaboration, and collaboration is key in an instructional mentor program. On the far right, the person with the book signifies an ongoing lifelong learner. We're always doing research. We're staying up to date with research-based trends and strategies in the educational world. The bottom right with the people, the 2 arrows, shows the mentorship that happens between coach and the designee. And then the bottom left with all the airplanes and the one taking off represents the change agent and the leadership of change in a program. And so that's our instructional coaching logo that we're keeping in while the program's alive. Dave?
Okay, and these are the instructional coaching priorities, and you'll see that we have them on the boards there like that, but they're going to change and grow year to year. So one of the things that we look at is a growth mindset, building emotional resilience. You can kind of look through and see the different things that we have. We support all staff at all sites, so not just teachers, but also paras and principals, anybody there. We adopt and utilize research-based instructional models. So one of the things that we brought in this year was we did have UC Davis Math Project work with us and work with the teachers. And so we were looking at a facilitation model and working with the students with a lot of manipulatives to try to get the math going in that way. We align our instruction to the priority standards that AUSD has. We analyze multiple forms of data. We're always looking at data and trying to change things. We use assessment data to inform instruction. So we're working with teachers on that. We're working with ourselves with that. Adapt instructional practice, implement research-based instructional strategies, facilitate and engage student learning. And that is huge, the engagement of student learning. Because if students aren't enjoying school, it makes it really hard. And that's where we see a lot of the kids just not wanting to be there, not wanting to do anything. We need to make it fun. We need to make it engaging. So working on that with teachers and students, maintain and support pacing units and lessons, support AUSD instructional programs, and ongoing support.
So this is some photos we were able to gather for you as evidence and data for how our program ran this year. So in the or in the bottom right there, you see Emily and I in very nice casual wear. We were part of the amazing Renaissance Fair at E.B. Kane. We were asked to run the Portugal booth. And since we both have lavender farms at our personal residences, we were able to bring Portugal alive with having the students create lavender sachet bags and doing some other fun things that involve the Renaissance Fair. And then in the upper right-hand corner, we were part of a lot of PLCs, which stands for professional learning communities. And so with that, we worked with groups of teachers. This was specifically for our EV Kane staff when we were supporting them with the interim assessments as part of a way of prepping students for SBAC testing that was coming up. And so we got to collaborate with the teachers and collect some data that were then able to use and apply for the next round of interim assessments.
And then if you see on the top left, the crumble cookies, we brought cookies with coaches in. And so new teachers were given a little bit of a coaching menu, and one of them was to have a cookie with coach. And so we could talk to them. We also take cookies into the teachers quite often and to the, the offices. And then you'll see the students at the tables. I went in and did a math lesson with the kids. It was very, it was facilitation by them. So we'll go into that a little bit more as we go into the presentation.
Next slide. So some year 3 data between Emily and I, we visited 265 classrooms in the 23-24 school year. Our first year of coaching, Kathy Anderson and I visited 100 classrooms. So we've come quite a long way since the first year of the coaching program. 60% of our classroom teachers here in AUSD received support from the instructional coaching program. 96% of our new 23-24 staff consistently received support through our program and had ongoing coaching cycles. And then 88% of our AUSD staff found our professional development days to be highly effective. Our professional development days occurred multiple times throughout the year. We had our welcome back in August. We had our September 5th professional development day, which was more like a conference style. So the teachers got to pick and choose, and we'll go over some of the options they had. And then we had our classified professional development day in October, and then another PD day in November.
Okay, and then data by school site. So at Auburn Elementary, 16 of the 33 classrooms were visited and utilized a coach, and that was 48%. At EV Kane, it was 13 out of 27 at 48%. And then at Skyridge, there were 16 out of the 25, which is 64%.
So just, yes.
Steve Ross, sorry to stop this. Since we're on this slide, are these majority like new teachers that you're working with? Or are you still working with some tenured teachers?
It's all staff.
It's all
classroom
and
teachers,
para
including new
educators,
We didn't
counselors.
include para-educators.
Okay.
But we did get to work with classified staff in multiple ways. But we just include, yes, some of the psychs and some of those folks, counselors.
Okay.
Because those are our certificated staff.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So in a year in review, Emily and I were very busy. We were able to participate in lesson demonstrations, coaching cycles. We were part of the Fiesta Night, which also housed our one of our community showcases. We participated in a pilot adoption process, which Emily and I will go into more. We were also part of facilitating, implementing, and delivering instruction at our professional learning days. Like Emily mentioned earlier, we supported and utilized the UC Davis Math Project and went to classrooms at most all elementary school sites. Our professional learning opportunities, building relationships. We also worked with PCOE and our differentiated assistants multiple days, looking at data, going over that. Our SBAC warm-ups, and SBAC is the state testing that our students take every year. And interim assessments, our transitional kindergarten and kindergarten roundups, facilitating and supporting and planning grade level meetings, and MTSS data roundtables meetings as well. So for part of the pilot process, Emily and I both worked with a pilot of team teachers. I worked with our ELD, English Language Development teachers, who are at EV Kane, who deliver ELD to our students who are English learners. And there was a need for a program 5, which is an intense program that provides ELD instruction to students during their ELD time. And so my teachers and I went through 2 cycles during the spring, and then we used a screener which had about 5 or 6 different criteria points, and we used a scaled rubric to decide, and they came to consensus on a program that they prefer for teaching ELD.
And then for TK, we did a pilot program. TK hasn't had its own program. So we looked at comprehensive programs. I worked with PCOE and they helped us connect with a couple programs. So we looked at 3 different programs. And so what the TK teachers did was, they went and they actually piloted the programs. And then we got together afterward and we went through a rubric to find out which program we liked. And that program would be brought up for adoption. And it was really great.
Is everybody familiar with what pilot process is? Or what a pilot is when we talk about, okay, just want to make sure. Yeah, so when you pilot a program, you're going to get some accelerated training from the publisher of the program that you want to try. And they're going to go over like a mini training on how to utilize the program. You typically do it for about 4 to 6 weeks. And you utilize only the program, the program materials. And then you go on to another program, do the same thing. You get training, you do about a unit or a few lessons, you get some assessment and data points in there. And then we use a screener to compare, just to make sure everybody knew what that was. Thank you. Dave? Okay.
Okay, and then lesson demonstrations. We've done CRLP, which is California Reading Literature Project, and it's working on literature skills, language skills with children. So maybe you'll go through in kindergarten, they might do letter sound, letter sound, letter sound, and then we'll go through and we'll read a word, spell a word, read a word. And it's going through the process so that children are getting used to seeing different things.
What's race strategy?
Race strategy is a strategy used for writing in classrooms.
And again, please hold your questions.
Class culture, working with classes and their culture and how to bring classes together more. Math games. And that goes back to, well, that's one of the activities that I did with that one class, a 5th grade class. They were in groups and they were we did groups by, they each had I can't remember what we did, but I think it was a shape. And so they went to their group and they were working and I gave them a box of sugar cubes and they needed to build a cube that was 4 by 4 by 4. And within that, I told them once a cube was built, I want them to pretend that that cube is dipped in paint. And now take it out. And they had to figure out how many cubes in that 4 by 4 by 4 didn't have any paint on them. How many had paint on one side, how many had paint on 2 sides, how many had paint on 3 sides. So they worked really collaboratively together, except for a few that ate the sugar cubes. That's going to happen. And then when they got that done, I said, okay, now I want you to do a 3 by 3 by 3. Did that. And I actually had a 5th grade group that was coming up with the algebraic formula. That's awesome. So taking this and really understanding that they're taking all this math that they've learned and now they're able to really understand it. And it was really nice because we had the students that really get it. And then we had those students that struggle and they go, for extra help, they go to RSP and they were pulling those cubes apart. They were coloring the sides. They were figuring out, why didn't this happen? It was amazing. And those are things that we are doing. I also went into classrooms and we played Yahtzee and those kids wanted to beat me every time. They're like, and then it was like, okay, now I'll get people on my side. And so that was fun, going in and doing technology, small group work, able to do that with classroom management, SBAC warmups. Again, that's looking at for state testing. So what we did was we put binders together for the teachers 3rd through 8th grade. It was a lot of binders. It was a lot of work and we got these together. We also emailed the teachers the warm-ups every week. And so what we're doing is trying to get the students used to the format and used to how those questions are asked so that we can build our test scores. And familiarity is so important. So math strategies, again, UC Davis and doing those different things, building thinking classrooms, expository writing, UC Davis, we did area 3 writing, SEL screener, which is our social emotional screener, doing that positive incentives and praise, writing. We have social emotional up there twice.
That's okay.
The race strategy, which is writing. vocabulary strategies, and then again, test prep.
RACE just stands for the type of informational paragraph that students can write in a response. So R stands for restate the question, A stands for answering, C is cite evidence, and E is explain. So students get used to the format of how to write an informational paragraph. So for our professional development offerings that we were talking about earlier, where we had our August, September, October, November training, these were multiple trainings that we offered during that time. We collaborated with folks to come in and teach these classes, or Emily and I taught them ourselves. We helped to facilitate the day and get the agenda written and get everybody's things in motion. And then teachers, again, had a conference style where they could pick which classes they wanted to attend and go to based on their need. So these were just some of them. Next slide.
Okay, year 4, we've got 3 schools, 1 coach. It's gonna be me. So I have my year cut out for me. One of the things that I'm really looking at is supporting teachers with building thinking classrooms. And that's where you defront the room and you bring the students to the middle of the room and present them with a question. And it could be math, you know, so that now they're going to be working together. And you don't ever really answer their question. You keep giving them another question. What would happen now? So really building this into next year, building it with the teachers, doing some training with that. I want to work with the teachers to improve communication with the AUSD structures, instructional strategies, and our expectations. And then I am planning to meet regularly with the new and newish teachers. And I'm saying newish because it could be, they could have been in the district for 2 or 3 years and they're still trying to find their way. So I want to meet with them at the beginning of the year. We're going to do it twice a month. So it's going to be Tuesday, Thursdays, twice a month. And then as the year goes on, because it gets really busy for everybody, that it would probably go down to once a month and as needed for the teachers. So that way we're really working together. Want to work on the priority standards, report cards, communication, and whatever else comes up. There are lots of questions, lots of things and nuances. Every district is very different. And so just knowing that and really working with them. Continue to work with the coaching cycles. Support teachers with math manipulatives and the new math framework. The state of California came out with a new math framework. It came out, I want to say in February or March. And it is very different looking. It is not our traditional math framework. So really working with teachers with that, working with students on that. Support PLC meetings, the MTSS data roundtable meetings, and grade level meetings. And whatever else comes up or whatever else I have time for. So.
Do you have any questions?
I do. This is Clerk Grigsby. When you were mentioning that not only meeting with the new and newish teachers, but is it almost like a case by case? Do you come and speak with them? Do they find you? Do you kind of tell them that they are finding you to begin with and then taking it case by case?
No, we're gonna meet in this central location and it's gonna be planned.
Wonderful.
So that they're gonna know what the dates are and yeah.
Perfect. And I did hear a lot about the collaborative day where they got to choose what they did. And I hope that was beneficial for all that were involved and chose to get the resources that they needed. Did you notice if it was something where it almost seemed like maybe there was more that we could offer next time? Was there some that it seemed like some teachers could have benefited from and they didn't take advantage of it? Would it be almost like you would want to send out an invitation to them and let them know we think that this might be a good fit for you?
Well, they did get to choose and before they knew what was gonna be there. So they had a little blurb about what it was. I think we can always offer more and different. And I think it can always, you know, there's always more improvement.
Just to add to that, we like to give our teachers autonomy and choice. And so while we try to offer a wide variety, we're going to hit the mark in some way, shape, or form. And so that's why we do conduct surveys and reflections to get those feedback forms so that we can be better the next time. I think the biggest thing for me, the aha moment, was just having a beginner and maybe an expert level of some of those courses. I found that maybe that could be better for the next time. So yes, yeah, good question. Thank you.
Trustee Ross, I have to say good job again. Same thing. It's been so wonderful to watch you two work here. And I hope, meaning that we have one instructional coach, that we'll hear about you still in the district doing things. So I was going to ask where you feel most of your energy is directed towards. And then I heard you say engagement of student learning was a big priority for you. And I'm really excited to see how we can work with Prop 28 and acknowledge some arts integrated curriculum to put in that engagement aspect. As you know, I work with Sacramento County Office of Education and their arts integrated program, and we've run something called Any Given Child. And what this do is actually put an artist in the classroom for an hour at a time, reiterating what the teacher is speaking. So it's giving that verification that things are working, and they're doing it in a really creative and innovative way. So being able to utilize these Prop 28 dollars on that engagement, I'm really excited to see what you innovate and how you put that together. And if there's anything I can do to support, please let me know.
Thank
That would
you.
be great.
Absolutely. We'll
Yeah.
get in touch with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want, this is, sorry, we have to announce our names. Trustee Brickler, and I just want to acknowledge your hard work, and I see you on the sites, and I see how hard you're working to engage the staff and provide opportunities and to really tailor what you offer. I can't thank you enough for bringing research into practice in our schools, and appreciate being able to quantify the impact that you've had in the last year working together, the last few years, but I appreciate seeing the outcome or the impact that you've had. So thank you so much. And I'm hopeful that we get to continue working with both of you in the district in some capacity.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
you.
Okay, and moving to item 6D, the presentation on the 24-25 proposed budget. Oh, pardon me. C, 6C, the presentation of the 24-25 local control and accountability plan. Thank you.
Good evening, President Holt, trustees, staff, and guests. My name is Michelle Lucci Garcia. I am the interim superintendent, and tonight we're going to talk a little bit about the 24-25 LCAP, which is the local control and accountability plan that our district has written. And I'll touch a little bit on the LCAP update toward the end of this presentation. So when the district gets together to determine need, we look at a variety of things. We look at data, we look at test scores, and a wide variety of data. You've heard a lot about data tonight. Pretty much everything that this wonderful Ed Services team has talked about in terms of data. We meet in teams. We meet with parent advisory committees. We meet with parent engagement. In a parent engagement fashion, where we open up our doors and talk about the LCAP with pretty much anybody from the community who comes, and then we meet with students. And so you'll hear a lot about student voices. The student voices is in reference to the groups of students that I have worked with for the last couple of years. They are put forth by their principals to meet with me. And once I have the group, the beginning of the year, they stay with me all year because they can see their input fold out into this plan. So this year, so the LCAP is a 3-year plan. And so as we wrap up the 3rd year, this year was the 3rd year of the 3-year plan, we're starting a whole new plan template. So there are a lot of similarities this year between the plan templates. They're not always similar. And so that made it a little bit more easy to show you the commonalities that we have in the plan from the prior 3 years to the next 3 years. Well, really, it's 1 year at a time. It can be revised and typically is revised, but the metrics span over a 3-year period because it's really intended to span a 3-year period. So we looked at the identified needs and we determined that academics and connectedness were the two biggest needs, because under those two big needs, almost everything that the board has said that they prioritize within the strategic plan can happen, right? And so when we talk about the LCAP, this is a plan for pretty much how we educate our students, but within that plan, there is funding that we refer to as supplemental concentration, or S&C. We love acronyms and initials in education. And so that money is principally directed to serve our unduplicated students, and our unduplicated students are our low-income students, our English learners, our foster youth, and our homeless. Now, when I say that, that means that that money is for those groups of students, but other students can benefit from the programs that we put into place in some situations. In some situations, they're just specifically for a specific group population, but for the most part, the money, as long as it's principally directed to those 4 groups of students, other students can benefit as well. So yeah, thanks, Dave. All right, so goal 1, I'll let you go ahead and read goal 1. And what you might notice here that it's very similar to our past goal 1, because again, the board prioritizes academics, right? So prioritizing academics, saying that this is a broad goal for us. We want to ensure that all of our students are able to show growth. The California dashboard measures student performance by growth. And so we are mimicking that because really the state holds us accountable to the growth. Thanks, Dave. And so within the LCAP plan, we have to address 8 state priorities. And so for goal 1, these are the priorities that we are addressing. Okay, Dave, thanks. So within goal 1, there are several actions. Each action is going to have its own pot of money, whether it's contributing or not contributing, and I'll explain that in a minute. And that money will go toward that action. So it's not the only funding source for that action sometimes, but sometimes it is. So I'll explain that a little bit to you as we go through. So for multi-tiered systems of support, and you heard about that earlier, MTSS, our data roundtable meetings, the district has put $186,000 of supplemental concentration funds to support this initiative. And so if you remember back to when the teaching and learning roadmap was introduced 5 years ago, MTSS was number 1 on that teaching and learning roadmap. It addresses all academics for all learners. And in those data meetings, educators sit with data, with the principal and the ed services team in many situations, and probably most or all situations, and they talk about ways to support each and every single student. So even if, let's say, Clark Grigsby was like, top of her game with assessment and doing really well in all other areas, how can we engage Clark Grigsby to make sure that she stays connected to her academics and grows within her learning in her school? So it's not just to support students that are not making growth, it's also to support students that are and keeping students engaged. So our MTSS data meetings, our common assessments, our supplemental programs, our data management systems, all of that really helps us to see a picture of each child individually, the whole child. So we're looking at academics, behavior, attendance, social emotional needs, and more. Okay. So same goal. So it's goal 1. That's why it's action 1.2. This is the second action of goal 1. We are contributing $150,000 of supplemental concentration funding. So again, supplemental concentration is specifically for unduplicated students to put on a summer academy. Now we've had summer academy in the past, but we've had a couple of years where we've had transition. And during that transitional time, we were unable to hold summer academy in the way that we have in the past. But we have had ESY. ESY extended school year serves our students with disabilities, and it is not, the funding toward that is not contributing, which means that we're not using supplemental concentration restricted funding for summer school for our extended school year students, but we do want to bring back Summer Academy. The one thing that students told me, and at probably every site, was they want fun, exciting summer school for them and their friends. So they'll come because it's really hard to remember everything over the summer, and summer camp is exciting. So I said, okay, I'll write that down. So I put camp style up there to give them, you know, to give that the attention that it deserves. Thanks.
May I ask, this is trustee Brickler, so that would be for the upcoming summer, not this summer?
Correct, not this summer.
Next year,
Correct.
summer.
Yes.
And I know every year we do offer the extended, or sorry, ESY extended school year for our special education students, but this would be opening it up for next summer as we have in the
Correct.
past for whomever wants to attend, or is it?
Yes, and well, whatever
Based on
whatever the
spaces?
data shows us, whatever the direction of the district is. So if you look at the strategic plan, it's going to be based on academics. If you ask the kids, they'll tell you, don't just bring us in for reading, because we want to come for math and science and all the things. So however that, that works out will probably be determined by the Ed Services team next year. And that will be after looking at data and holding MTSS meetings and talking with everybody as well. But yes, but that is the goal. So technology, so we are contributing $595,000 toward providing one-to-one devices for students. This isn't just the cost of the device. The cost of the device is in here, but it also allows for the software, the support, the programs, and all the things that we need to have put in place to be able to provide one-to-one devices, including training and cybersecurity and staff to support when, let's say, a student's doing homework at night and a parent sends an email, then our wonderful technology staff can, reach out and connect with the parent to support. So it's there are a variety of ways that we support one-to-one devices. It's not just with the Chromebook itself. Thanks, Dave. Language acquisition. So you heard a lot about this from Rachel today. Last year when I met with our English Learner Advisory Committee, our district level English Learner Advisory Committee, they said, we want someone to come in like a TOSA. Well, they said like a teacher. And I know that means a TOSA because that's our acronym for Teacher on Special Assignment, to really be able to oversee the language programs and make sure that we don't have any gaps, right? And so based on that and, again, the strategic plan and the teaching learning roadmap, we wrote that position into the LCAP. So we're going to continue that position because you heard tonight how effective having somebody in that position overseeing has been. And then on top of that, whatever the English Learner Master Plan needs to ensure that we're implementing it. And you heard me say after our Federal Program Monitoring FPM review that the California Department of Ed wants to use our English Learner Master Plan as a sample for districts like ours that don't have big teams and big committees that can put these resources together because it was so well written. So we have that wonderful document that helps support, it's like our framework for how we serve our English learners. So whatever we put in there, we have to be able to back up with funding. Otherwise, we're just putting words on paper that don't mean anything. And then training for our staff to ensure that designated and integrated ELD are happening. So designated and integrated ELD are by law required for our English learners. Designated means that we have a specific set of time in every day where teachers are pulling groups of students by their levels and they're supporting their English language development. And integrated, there's a saying, it's called all day, every day. It's everything you do. You're integrating strategies for English learners, and that benefits all learners as well. So that training, we're continuing that on, and then to make sure that our ELD is implemented to fidelity. Visual and performing arts, again, I'm just going to call out student voices because I can't tell you how many times they said VAPA art. They really wanted to make sure that we kept these programs. And so, and the picture I put in here was actually, I pulled it off of one of our school sites. So the students love it. We're not We didn't plan to get rid of it, but we know that it's not a core program. So in order to ensure that we can provide access to this, we've contributed funds to support the program. Okay, Dave. And then maintaining credentialed teachers. So again, you know, how does the money that we're putting into this plan, those contributing funds have to help support more than just our core programs. So if you look at the staffing ratios, we want to make sure that we have smaller class sizes. Smaller class sizes support students in their learning. They help retain staff. We want to make sure that we are increasing services for students. So keeping our class sizes smaller is definitely a benefit for that. And then, of course, that supports all of our students, but it's principally directed to support the needs that our unduplicated students have. Okay, Dave. And then professional learning. So I have to tell you, when we initially wrote the plan, we put professional learning, we put a sum of money into everything we were doing, because we were like, everything we do needs a profession, it needs professional learning. So instead of having we had before, a whole goal that was wrapped around just what we call PD or professional learning, we decided to embed it within each thing. But then we were given some great advice by our PCOE partners to pull it out and really showcase it. So while we're contributing $4,000, that might seem like a low amount. We have a wonderful team who already trained, right? We have a variety of restricted funds that also we can put toward professional learning. And then this is like another, just to make sure that if there's something we missed, we have it covered with this fund. And then again, the Ed Services team and, they'll revisit this. Did we need more? Do we need less? That will come to you next year if the plan is revised. Okay. All right, goal number 2. I'll let you read this. Okay, so goal number 2 hopefully looks familiar to you as well, because we also had this goal on our last LCAP. Although we adjusted the language a little bit, because we don't do every year over again, right? So every year that our district implements our teaching and learning roadmap or our initiatives, we should be able to make some changes in language, because we should be growing as a district. So the state priorities that are addressed in this goal are right here, as you see. Okay, Dave. And then 2.1, so intervention, enrichment, clubs, and sports. Now, in the past, when the current year's LCAP first was introduced, we were just coming out of a pandemic. And so we wanted to make sure that we had, tutoring and a lot of things embedded in there that we felt at the time we really needed. But things have changed, right? And so now we're making sure that we're, the students are in school, things are back. Kids really want to have after-school clubs and sports and back student voices. I have to tell you, the students are so honest. I just absolutely love meeting with them. They said, well, we have to have clubs and sports and, things like, robotics and stuff, because on the days we have those, our friends and maybe we are sure that we're at school. And I said, perfect. Consider it written in the plan, right? Because really that's the connectedness piece, right? So when we looked at the academics and the connectedness, goal 2 is really all about connectedness. And so when kids come to school, they're here for the academic day. They stay for the fun programs, sports, clubs, and that type of thing. But those fun programs and sports are part of their learning as well, right? And so that they would, admit to me that that's sometimes what gets people to school. That's amazing. We'll take it. So we went ahead and put some funds in there to contribute to that. And then the Library Media Center, kids wanted more time with their library tech. So we did bargain that this year, as you know, because you all adopted our agreement with CSEA to lengthen the amount of hours that the library techs are in the library. And so I'm happy to say that students will have library technicians for 5 hours a day. And the goal around that was to be able to open up the library during lunches, the span of lunch periods, so that kids could go in, kids told me that's not even enough because they want to make sure that we have games that they can play and, and fun books to read. So I told them I will write that in there as well. So there is money in here, not only for the positions, but for more engaging titles and games so kids can play and collaborate and feel connected. Thanks, Dave. And then student support. So Director Young oversees a lot of supports for students, and those supports vary, from our counselors, our mental health specialists, our community liaisons, right? And so if you think about what a student support is, it's everything that helps a student to really be able to grow academically and socially, right? So we made sure, so instead of having a whole goal just about student supports where everything was broken up, we put it all into one student support goal. We have a student support department and we have a variety of things we do within that department. So we assigned that to its own action, student support. Within there, we also increased funding for family events and more engagement type of activities. Transportation. So this year, we had money in the LCAP to ensure that every unduplicated student who needed to get to school was able to have a voucher for the public school system. And so we put enough money in there for every single child for the whole year. And I'll talk a little bit about that in the update. But what we found was we didn't need as much money as we put. Okay, I'm giving it away now. We didn't need as much money as we put. So, but we didn't want to take all the money out because we don't know what the need will be next year, right? We're assuming that the need will go down with the neighborhood schools, but we don't know because we haven't lived through next year yet. So on top of that, we are part of a league and we want to make sure that our students can get to sports. And so there's plenty of money in here to be able to contract with buses to get our students to their after-school sports and programs. Hit it. Now, this is a non-contributing fund right here. That's because even though it isn't one of the 8 state priorities and we have to talk about it, this isn't something that we can say we can outline a way that it supports our unduplicated students, right? So this doesn't qualify to use contributing funds, which means our supplemental concentration dollars do not pay for this action. But we're saying that, with $120,000, we believe that we can go above and beyond with, our maintaining safe facilities to support growth and achievement for kids. Okay, Dave. And then family engagement. This is actually contributing. So I will change that slide because I added this in later and I apologize for that. This is the contributing fund. We're putting an additional to what I told you before. We have more money for family literacy nights and that type of thing. This is another fund of money to make sure that we have our interpreters that are here tonight in the small conference room, that we have our translation services covered, that we have more themed nights. I know that Auburn Elementary used Phil Tolga. That can be, some of those services can be expensive. And so we want to make sure we put money for family engagement in so many pots that we would never really run out. And so far, the principals have been using a lot of that family engagement money this year. So that's nice. Okay. And then this is sufficient instructional material. So this is non-contributing. We budgeted about $209,000 for this upcoming year because we know that with now the State Board of Education has adopted a new framework. That framework, they've actually approved it and it's actually in place. So we know that now is the time to pilot math for next year. We know that there's a need and that there's a request by teachers to pilot math. And so we went ahead and we budgeted money that we felt we would need to go ahead and pilot and potentially adopt next spring. Okay, so the annual update. So the annual update's actually attached, and in fact, there was an adjustment to it. So I attached a new copy. I logged it in the agenda, but I also brought copies here for the public, which are back in that back table. What you're going to see right now is just the material differences in the budgeted and the estimated actuals. And what that means is if we said we're going to spend $41,000 on MTSS, but we actually spent $51,000 on MTSS, then we look at that and we notice that we've gone over what we budgeted, right? So within the LCAP, there are like with the transportation where we used less money, you know, money can go into different goals, and I'm sure that CBL Leslie could explain that better than I can, but we, you know, we can go over and still cover the cost, but we really want to get close to budget, right? So we looked at MTSS and we saw that we went over where we are now in this moment, but we also know that we're growing into MTSS and we have a better understanding. And so we are refining our practices for MTSS. And to do that, we've needed to have a new data management system. We need to have more screeners and that type of thing. So we budgeted all of that in to the LCAP for this upcoming year, which is why you saw the budget for MTSS increased. Before and after school programs, we budgeted $60,000. We only spent $2,800. Some of that is staffing. Some of that is that we have the ESSER funds we were still using, and some other funds of money that we the restricted funds that have an expiration. And so we were using some of those to contribute to the cost of before and after school programs. Language acquisition, we budgeted 262,000. We spent 150,000 approximately. We're still closing out the books. The number, Jeremy explained it to me today, will be more solid for you in August, I believe. When the books are fully closed for June and everything's been paid, then the business office will bring that number to you. VAPA, we went over budget, because again, the kids they want more VAPA, not less. And so we purchased curriculum and we purchased more materials and supplies for VAPA. Oh, visual and performing arts is VAPA. Visual and performing arts. Sorry, that is such a common thing we say VAPA, but I forgot that it was an acronym. Thank you. Guided reading, we put aside $3,000 because remember we wrote this LCAP 3 years ago. So that was a big initiative back then. It's not as much of a big initiative now. It's a tool that teachers can use. If they need any more guided reading materials, then that would just be a conversation that they would have, the sites would have. So far, nobody has needed to replenish materials. So we actually took that out of the LCAP for next year. Library Media Center. So again, we're still closing out. We have library technicians that are working some extra hours to close up and repack for this transition. Middle school principal, we went under budget mainly because it took us so long to find Katie Bansamer, our vice principal. And so we had, you know, a few months of the school year, feels like years, went by before we could get her in her place. And so we didn't spend all of the money that we allocated. Middle school counselor, we are paying more on wages than we anticipated. And then public transportation, you can see the discrepancy between what we thought, or really, we weren't sure. We didn't know, right? But what we wanted to do was make sure that we had money set aside for every single unduplicated student, like I said to you before. And so we did that, and we spent about $22,000 so far. Thanks. And then so the last 3 years of LCAP were 5 goals. So now we're down to 2, but you can see similarities again in language, that the language is there, but it's just more condensed and streamlined. So social emotional learning, we put aside $6,000 really to make sure that our toolbox curriculum was in every classroom. We didn't have a need to purchase a lot more. So you can see that difference. Our school psychologist, you're looking at wages, and that's a % of time. It's not a full, it's not one full-time employee, which we call FTE. It's a percentage of our school psychologist pay. PBIS, that is, we overspent on that. But as you know, we've also won awards for it. So that's something that we looked into to make sure that under student support that PBIS was covered. And then our mental health specialist and community liaisons came under budget. Part of that is the lack of staffing. Educational partner engagement. So it's super exciting, right? We budgeted 40,000. It's never really exciting to go over budget, except it is here because we, you know, in the LCAP, you know, as long as you're not going over budget in every area, you know, it's exciting to watch the trends. We know that we're not going to be on budget for every single thing because we're predicting, but it's exciting to see that we've spent more money on educational partner engagement than we have in years past. That means that we're really reaching out to our families. Professional development, we budgeted 365,000, we spent 190,000, but that mainly is because we have other funds as well, like the Educator Effectiveness Grant, to support professional development, which, you know, we're calling professional development here, but we're switching to professional learning because it's more of a learning situation. And then in Goal 5 addressed our students with disabilities only. That was a requirement for last year only because the state was working on the equity multiplier formula. And so now they have adopted the equity multiplier, but we don't use it because we don't qualify for it. But while they were working on that, they wanted to make sure we were addressing the needs of our students with disabilities. And so within that, we hired a program specialist and we put some money toward professional development and you know, we went over on our money toward professional development. So again, that's exciting because that means that now we understand the need and we have embedded some of that in the student supports category. And that's what I have for you. That's a lot.
Okay, so
Okay.
Trustee Ross, congratulations, first of all, because I remember 3 years ago when we started this LCAP process and trying to wrangle in parents, remember like showing up at the LCAPs and parents were confused on what was going on. And now it seems like parents are on board with what the LCAP is and the importance of it. My question to you is, how many people participated in the LCAP? Because I know it kind of dwindled down as the third year came upon us. And how can we better that process for the next time we need to get more parents and community members involved in LCAP?
So yes, the numbers did dwindle down. We had fewer people this year engaging in the LCAP process. I think to be really honest, in times of transition, this is what we face, right? So we've had a couple of years of transition where, you know, parents, they are interested and they do want to participate and they come or they'll fill out the surveys or, you know, give their input in some way. But there's a lot of input to give when you are transitioning. And so I think people can't do everything all the time. And I think people kind of picked and chose what they were going to. I'm assuming that that's what kind of why the numbers dwindled this year and kind of mid-year last year as well. So what can we do? I mean, you know, the principals, you know, rallied up at the sites that, you know, that the district puts out communications. I mean, there's, you know, there's ways to inform the public. So that will be something that I'm sure that the new superintendent will be able to work on. Yeah.
This is Clerk Grigsby. I just really wanted you to reiterate the state adopted our lesson plan. Is that correct?
Oh, our EL master plan. Yeah.
Master plan?
So they didn't adopt it, but they want to use it as an example for districts like ours because we're small, but we do all the things that big districts do. And when that happens, that means that very few people do the work of very many people, right? And so what they said was our EL master plan was written so well that they would like to share it with other districts as a resource while they're writing their EL master plan.
That is an amazing feat. I am so excited. I am so just, I shouted it to everybody at work. It was hilarious.
great.
They were like, oh, okay.
Yeah, we're pretty excited too. So thank you for being excited with
Absolutely.
it.
This is Trustee Brickler. I just wanted to remind us, right, that this is our public hearing essentially, or that's coming up soon, but the format is that tonight we're hearing about the plan and we're not taking action.
Correct.
That'll happen at our meeting next
Next
Tuesday, the 18th. So that there's an opportunity to hear from the public about what's being proposed. I guess I was just reflecting on it's got to be challenging when you have data for the 3 current school sites and then students are moving next year. So you're trying to project what their needs will be at the school sites, right? Some of the data is kind of school specific, what the needs are, it seems. I just wanted to acknowledge that, you know, since we are in transition, we don't know what a specific school, what the students that attend that school next year will need, but I know there's a lot of commonalities too across our sites. Let's see, can you tell us more about the staff? There's about $900,000 budgeted for class size reduction, and everybody wants smaller classes.
Mhm.
I think that students and staff really benefit from them. So I guess how does that mesh with the fact that the TK8 model in part, I think, is being adopted in order to try to better utilize our staff, right? I think part of that strategy to save money was that we would be able to reduce staff in that model. But then I see that we're adding more staff positions. Can you just walk me through what that how those two goals work together?
Sure. So if you think about what supplemental concentration funding does, it adds layered restricted money onto the general fund. So you have your general fund, you have your staffing ratios that the board adopted. And if we staffed to those ratios, we would be cutting positions right now, right? So to the board approved ratios, right? So we want to keep class sizes smaller because we believe at this time with our data, and this is our belief is that smaller class sizes will support our unduplicated students, right? So if you think about what the money is intended for, it's to support unduplicated students. If we have larger class sizes, there's less growth in students, right? So then to ensure student growth, we keep our class sizes smaller by using this restricted money to layer onto our general fund so that we can keep those class sizes smaller. And I'm sure that if there's something I'm missing about the fiscal end of it, you can jump in, but I'm pretty sure I got it.
This is CBO Leslie. So essentially what she's saying is that we had to look at if we really wanted to staff and really kind of like, because we are in that budget crunch, really shoving those classes together and then reducing staff. This was a fail safe for us to be able to retain staff and hopefully keep those class sizes smaller.
I have another question. Are we limited in using these funds to help get kids to school? I know that one of the ways that we support students who may need help with transportation is through the vouchers, the public transportation vouchers. I was just reflecting on the goal that if we're trying to reduce chronic absenteeism, it would be wonderful if we could offer busing, if we had the resources, like we used to provide busing. So, are we limited in adding, but we're providing busing for activities after school, but are we, with these funds, are we able to offer busing to just get kids to school in the first place since we're concerned about chronic absenteeism?
We don't have enough funds to be able to offer transportation the way we did. Believe me,
Yeah.
when we had a boost in our supplemental concentration funding, the first thing I did was say, whoa, let's look at transportation. But we don't have enough funding. And on top of that, if our students move or we lose funding for unduplicated students, then we have to do away with transportation again, right? So that's something that if we had enough to be able to give transportation to all students, we could look at and say, okay, we could do it for a year, but don't expect it every year. We could do that, but we don't have enough to do that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Clerk Grigsby again. To kind of work off of that question, I know that I know of another school district that received a grant, and I know that the state is doing different things with their transportation for the school budgets. Are those things something that down the line we may be able to look at with these LCAP funds?
With the LCAP funds, I'm not sure, but if it's a grant, then that would be something that the district would have to look at. What's the fine print of the grant? Do you have to contribute anything else to that? Because that could impact your general fund. Typically grants come with some kind of a cost, even if it's like, oh, just make sure you have staff there, that's still a cost to the general fund. So that would be something that the district would have to look at very carefully and then bring to board for approval, because as you know, all grants come to you for approval first.
I almost said Clerk Grigsby. Trustee Ross, going off of what Clerk Grigsby is saying with their grants, and again, bringing up Proposition 28 and knowing that that money is starting to come through for our schools, is there any way to acknowledge Prop 28 as the VAPA funds and then allow those funds to be open for something else? Or is that something we look later on? And
So we are utilizing some Prop 28 funds. And again, I'm looking at CBO Leslie for that specific part because that's a budget and business transaction that she'll have more information about than me. But I mean, typically, when we're looking at increasing and improving services for our unduplicated population, giving students access to the arts is something that the board has made clear. Academics is a top priority. We know that access to the arts connects students to school and boosts their academics. And so it makes sense that VAPA is written in this LCAP with the use of the supplemental concentration funding.
CBO Leslie again. So the Proposition 28 was written by the government with a caveat, much like with our title funds, of a supplement, not supplant. So any actions that we take with the new Proposition 28 arts and music funding have to be done as in addition to what the district is already providing or doing. So if it's something that we're continuing to try and fund this, if it was like, I believe that we have music teachers that we've already funded with this, we can't go back and then just kind of swap it out. We have to be a little bit more creative with how do we supplement this. And I know Superintendent Lucha Garcia has already done that with some of the staffing recommendations. I think that had come up before of like, if we're removing staff, why are we adding staff? Well, we're adding additional, drama or art on top of what we already did, and we can use the restricted funds for that. And so we have to be really careful about how we do that. So that's why we had to continue, in order to continue the VAPA program or visual and performing arts as we have, to make sure it's included in the LCAP again.
okay, thank you. And my last question is, so then in our 2024, 2025 year, we will be gathering as a community again to kind of acknowledge the next 3 years. Is that
Yeah.
what happens in our process?
Well, you gather every year. So, so there are more than two ways to gather, but there are two designated ways. One is that community engagement piece, which we held a couple of those this year, 2 or 3. I can't remember right now. But I could look and find out if you wanted. And then we held parent advisory committee meetings. And for those parent advisory committee meetings, they're open to people to come sit in, but the conversation is with the parent advisory committee members. And those members were selected by principals at each site. And they had to be parents of unduplicated students.
I do remember something going on that night where we only had maybe 2 people show up and there was a huge misunderstanding. And so to me, it's just a little unfortunate that we do try to get involvement and we're not seeing that effort, from parents or community or district or principals or wherever that may lie. I'm really hoping, I guess this is just my outcry to the public to say, please, please, please get involved with these LCAP meetings so we can know what's significant and important to the children and to our families and communities' needs. So
And
That's
just
it.
to add on to that, a couple of other things we did. I gave the LCAP to us. I made a slide deck for principals and asked them to present that at their staff meetings and get input from staff. And we sent a survey out to the community. So, we sent the survey link out more than once. It was over a span of several months. So, the goal and the intention is to reach people wherever they are, right? If somebody can't come to a meeting after, people have work schedules that conflict, then they could fill out the online survey and that type of thing. We also reached out, Rachel and I worked together with the site ELAC committee and then the DLAC committees to make sure that she was getting some feedback and some input. If they weren't able to come, parents weren't able to come here for the DLAC or for the parent engagement meetings, Rachel was getting input through those ELAC meetings as well. So we try to be very creative and solicit input with every group that we could. But yes, I'm sure that the district will continue down that road because really it's a requirement.
Thank you.
Trustee Brickler, I just wanted to acknowledge that community engagement is challenging, right? You have to kind of go where people are. And I know there are a lot of different efforts that were made. I think one small one might be, and I know it's labor intensive for our staff, but to offer the meetings like via Zoom or to have an online component to it. because I would just love to see more family participation at these meetings. Sometimes it's just a handful of people and it's staff and it's maybe one parent. So I hope we can brainstorm about how to better
Sure.
engage folks.
I'll pass that along to Dr. Meyer. Okay. All right. Thank you.
There you go. This is President Holt. I do want to acknowledge, though, that we have great participation from the students. So I got to join Student Voices, and there was a handful of kids at each school site, and they were very involved. So at least they are speaking out. Each one of them, they were very happy to share what was important to them. And it was really insightful, sharing what concerned them, what they saw in their school sites, what they saw as problems, what they want to see next year. So they are speaking out, even if we don't have people come to our evening meetings. So.
And to add to that, that's with me all year, even though I re-taught them every time they came about what the LCAP was. So. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And moving to item 6D, the presentation of the 24-25 proposed budget.
Did you want to introduce her?
CBO Heather Leslie and Jeremy McReynolds, our district accountant, will present the proposed 24-25 budget.
Thank you. This is CBO Leslie, and because of the tight quarters, I'm going to go ahead and let Jeremy take the podium, and I'll go ahead and stay put. So Jeremy, if you want to go ahead and go. Yay, Jeremy. You go ahead, go up on. All right. So we're going to go ahead and give you a brief overview of what's contained in the 24-25 proposed budget. Okay, slide, David. So what did we get out of the May revision? I like to look at it and say not much, but there really is a lot. It's just how it actually affects us. And that's kind of a narrow way to look at it. So I wanted to make sure we had a slide, and don't worry, I won't read all these things to you, of what was some of the things that were contained and kind of where the budget is heading. Again, a lot of these things are not going to directly affect Auburn Union as a school district, but one thing that's going to affect everybody at some point is the projected $56 billion deficit between this year's shortfall in funding and next year's shortfall in funding in the state budget. What's happening with that is what we usually try not to do, which is we're funding ongoing cost for education and other state programs with the rainy day fund and some other programs. So essentially the state is using one-time money that they have, like a savings account, to pay for money that's ongoing with kind of the fingers crossed that we're going to see better times ahead. So everybody just, keep your fingers crossed on that one. So it really is continuing to fund, or as they're saying, fund education completely. So that's really our takeaway from this. I think it was looking a little bit worrisome as we got into this budget year, but we're feeling pretty good about it now. So you can read through some of the bullets of some of the one-time education reductions or programs that holistically affect the state. As far as program funding, in other years, we've seen some very specific add-ons of funding or add-ons to what they call the base grant or how much they give per student. And we're not seeing any additional from that except for the cost of living adjustment that they've issued out to the majority of the base programs. The Extended Learning Opportunities Program, or ELOP funding, that we've had encumbered. So this was a grant that was given out for extended learning. So we see that a lot of as before school, after school, or intersession. So during holiday breaks, during the summer, we've really been able to expand and work with our community partners to have like the Boys and Girls Club present on site more, Discovery Club or Auburn Recreation District to provide those services. And we had a big rollover of money that had come over that when they first instilled the program, everybody was scrambling to try and make these things happen on their sites. As we're expending those monies out, they have to be expended by September 30th of 2024. So that's why in prior, board meetings, if you go back, you'll see a lot of expenditures and things pushed out from the ELOP funding, as we call it, because we're trying to get those monies spent. In future years, from 25-26 on, it looks like they're now going to allow districts to decline participation in that program, which was not a luxury some other small districts were given. So aside from Auburn, a lot of very small districts in the state have really struggled to try and put these programs in their communities. So we're very lucky we had people we could partner with. And of course, the changes to the cost of living adjustment or COLA. Slide. Thank you, Dave. And here's our journey of the cost of living adjustment. So it's really difficult, as we say, what was it that Jeremy that we had is it's always mostly right and exactly wrong is the budget. And here's a great example of why. So
Approximately right.
approximately right. So when we came to the community and to the board with our first interim report in December, the state was projecting, and what we were told to project is 3.9% for a cost of living adjustment increase to our funding. By the time we got to the January budget proposal, that had gone down to 0.76%. So that's where it was like, ooh, okay, now we're struggling and we're starting to put numbers together and we're at 0.76. And now as we hit our May revision, now that's changed again to 0.107. So this is where we anticipate it will hold. If it doesn't hold, that's where that would come back in a 45-day revision. So a slide that I think speaks a little bit heavier is what does that cost of living adjustment actually mean to our district as far as the difference in funds that we had received in the prior year and the base funds that we will receive in this upcoming year? And there are active changes that happen. So as we have changes in enrollment, that reduces how much we're going to get in. But if we just look at the programs that we're attempting to provide for the students that we have, in 23-24, our base grant funding, so that's our unrestricted money that we receive in, totally separate from the money that funds the LCAP, as you just heard in the presentation from Superintendent Lucci Garcia, we received about $15.8 million. This year, we anticipate we'll get just barely over $15 million. So we actually have, even though it's a 0.107 increase of cost of living adjustment, we're going to experience approximately a 5.22% decrease in funding, with about $829,000 less than we had last year. So it's that really hard thing where you just want to look at it as 1.07. And as we all know, 1.07 isn't even covering, the cost of goods and services that are racking up. So on top of that, the district will be receiving $800,000 less dollars. And again, that kind of speaks to when we talk about how do we keep our class sizes and moving those types of things into the LCAP document, that kind of helps speak to why that happens. So typically, as we talk about enrollment, when we have what those that do demography or projections call an unprecedented year, in the past, when we've had a charter school open or some significant changes, those years kind of come out of the average as we look at what the survival is of our students all the way through, or how many students we would expect to get. So last year was what we consider an unprecedented year, with the closure of our dependent charter school and also one of our elementary school sites. This year is also going to be another unprecedented year as we go through the grade reconfiguration. However, until we get a couple more years under our belt as to what that might look like, it doesn't behoove us to remove those years in our averages. So right now, we're anticipating that we'll have about a 0.6% increase in our enrollment, and a majority of that is attributed to another transitional kindergarten class that we are able to add at our E.V. Kane school site as we move to the TK8 model. And as we go through just in very basic projections, again, as this is not adding anything for growth, not taking anything away, just rolling those students forward with average amounts that we retain. We're looking at the possibility of a reduction of 2.2% in enrollment following. I'm sorry, this is, I'm a year off, aren't I, on this one? Okay, I lied to you guys. So we got the 0.6 previously. We're looking at possibly a minus of 2.2, which I've got my fingers crossed that we will retain a lot more students that we anticipate. And then possibly another decrease. And then we are looking, as things move on, we have a bubble that are in some of the lower grades that are higher numbers of students, particularly as we get into the 4th and 5th grades. So as those kind of start, coming through, and we still anticipate the larger classes coming in, that's where we start to see the possibility of an uptick in 26, 27. Yes.
All right.
Well, hold on.
Sorry,
Katie.
Trustee Ross, since we're on that last ADA, I just have a question because I was a little bit confused with our average daily attendance that you marked on here is 1,300 students. That's how many attend on average each day currently in our current year, right?
Yes.
And then you're predicting that we'll have an average of 1446. That's an increase of
Yeah, so
enrolled,
this is
but not
enrollment, not
daily
average daily attendance.
Thank you
And
so much for the
And again,
clarification.
just to confuse matters more, average daily attendance, we get funded on a 3-year average of years prior. So there's our enrollment, our actual per year average daily attendance, and then what we get funded on right now, which
I
is
thought that was
completely
only
different.
for COVID, but that is not.
Nope, that was a new thing last year that they added in to help us not just fall off the funding cliff. It's trying to ease everybody into less money.
So we're getting paid an average of 2021, 2022, 2022, 2022, 2023, 2023, 2024, and then what's actually happening that year. Is
Yeah,
that
that
correct?
actually happening that year, they've kind of
Okay.
left off, and we're still benefiting from the forgiven average daily attendance from COVID.
Oh,
And then
okay.
as we roll into future years, well, this is enrollment, that will drop off. And so that's where you start to see our budget. It's hard to pick it out unless you're really looking, because it'll look like we start to get more money as we get into 26, 27,
Yeah.
but that's all captured in supplemental and concentration. Our actual base funding is going to go down because of that.
Got you. Thank you so much.
Okay, Jeremy.
All right, so what Heather covered, we're trying to build a budget off for 3 years. And so we base it off of everything that Heather just talked about, which are the assumptions. So those are our assumptions of what we think it's going to be. And it's our best guess of how we're going to build this budget. And so we want to, try and live within our means, get the most to our students, and really focus on, getting as many kids in the classroom as possible so that we can help out, those students. So supplemental concentration monies are fully spent in our budget. And so what we plan to do is spend all of those monies that we have allocated for supplemental concentration. And the reason that's important is if we don't spend those money the funds that we have, they roll over and we'll have to spend them the next year, and they keep growing. And so it's important that we have additional staff and teachers assigned to those supplemental money that we get. The final spend down of the COVID related funds are important too, because we don't have the extra money that we did. We do have some lottery funds that are going to carry over, but those are one-time funds also. And so when we look at these funds, they're not ongoing at the rate that they are now, and we have to prepare for less funds in the budget. We knew that there were going to be some retirements, and so when we gave the salary increase in the projection for that, we counted into that retirements. And then go ahead and go to the next slide. So what I get into is the details every day. And so staff come to me and want to know exactly where things are, if we have money for that, and I'm able to say yes or no. And what we do is we base it off of the local revenue, and we have, for 24-25, $17,631,505 dollars to spend. But we have all of these other things that we have to fund, and we have all these other buckets of money, and we have to contribute to those. And we get a little bit of local revenue, we get state revenue. Those contributions that we have to contribute to, I'll get to in a minute, but that's essentially where we get our money from. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So we have a red box at the bottom. So the net decrease of fund balance of unrestricted funds. So based on what we're doing and what we project that we need to get to spend for our students, and if we don't make any cuts, we're going to be $1.2 million deficit spending this year coming up. Now we can put into measures, we can change this. The budget cycle happens, every day for me. We have cycles that happen October where we revise the budget, then we come back again in December and revise it. So there's opportunities to constantly change it and revise it so that we can meet our financial obligations. So, if you were going to relate this to your household budget, if you went to buy groceries at the end of the month, you would be able to, tap into your savings account to buy those groceries. We're not yet putting them on the credit card. So that's kind of just a everyday example of how, our budget cycle works. Go to the next slide.
May I ask, this is Trustee
Yeah.
Brickler, you were using the example of we're not using a credit card yet.
Right.
But if you go back, it does appear that we are deficit spending still and it's a fairly significant amount, 1.2 million for the next 2 years. So if it's not the credit card, then what is that? Pulling it from the bank account?
Yeah, we're
Pulling it
pulling
from our
it from the
savings
savings
account? I know, but the savings account is dwindling though.
Yes,
Right?
that's correct.
I guess I know that there's been a lot of effort put into controlling costs, but we can't take our eye off the ball that we're still deficit spending.
Right. And a lot of that in this next year is we're spending more because we're not getting in those COVID dollars. We're having projects that are ending. So, those things are ramping down. We're having to supplement where we, it's a slow tail off where, it's going to be less in the out years, but we have a little more time to plan.
Yeah. We talked one time about planned deficit spending, and I know there's some bit of this because we have one-time funds. We want to utilize them. If we don't, we'll lose them. But when I compare the unrestricted and the restricted deficit spending was maybe like 300,000. I don't know. I don't
Right.
have it in front of me, but it was a smaller, I still think there's significant deficit spending from unrestricted that's happening.
Correct.
So I guess I just want to say we have more work to do in order to ensure solvency moving forward.
Correct.
So just to clarify, Trustee Ross, just to clarify, we still need to cut $1.2 million from our budget in order for us to be right side up.
Correct. And so we might get more students next year. And if we do, then we're gonna be in good shape. But we won't know until October whether or not we're gonna have to make those cuts.
And suppose we lose students instead of gain students, do we have an alternative thought process to how we'll make that work?
We'll have to right size the district.
Okay, so more layoffs. So it just
Correct.
for people in our community to expect that there's going to be a big push of
Right.
things we may not like in the future to come.
This is
Yeah.
Cool. Just to be clear though, too, it seems like some of these questions will be more appropriate for Dr. Meyer going into the next month than for Jeremy. He won't be the one necessarily making the decisions on where spending comes from.
Correct.
Or making those recommendations, but it will be the superintendent and the board.
Great, but just
Yeah.
to clarify, we have,
Yeah.
so, okay.
So I want to get into the next slide. This is our contributions from the general unrestricted fund. We have special education. We get funding from our SELPA of about $1.3 million a year. And we have to add another $4.8 million to that to serve the students with the highest need in our district that we're, helping them out because they have requirements that we have to meet. Routine repair and maintenance. We're constantly repairing air conditioning, facility repairs, roofs, painting. And a lot of that happens with our deferred maintenance too. And we have a fund that we put $150,000 a year into. And so and that's barely enough to, do minor projects. And so if we can add to that and build that fund up to do major roof repairs, major sewer repairs, if we have to, that money will be there. So our total contribution is anticipated at $5.6 million.
Trustee Brickler,
Yeah.
I am well aware of how much we need to invest in our facilities. I mean, even if you look at this district office, the siding needs repair. It's apparent at our campuses, in spite of our staff's best efforts, that we need to invest in our facilities. But at the same time, we are running a deficit. So I noticed we're putting in, it's not a lot more, but we're putting maybe like 80,000 more for RRM than we are required to. Are we required to put in for deferred maintenance? I know we need it. I guess it's just a question of if we are in such a precarious situation of deficit spending, can we dial some of these back to the minimum?
Well, routine repair and maintenance, we're required to contribute 3% of very particular expenditures, and that's both unrestricted and restricted. So that comes down to our basic 3% of what we project. So that also gets adjusted and trued up, through the year, as long as we, don't overspend, which can happen too. And then we contribute to that resource as well. And deferred maintenance is not required. As we talked about, we did establish that fund back when the state was anticipating giving us deferred maintenance one-time money, which would have been amazing. But in the interim, we've just continued to try and contribute that $150,000 as like a low ball, just so that we had a buffer just in case. And so that's benefited us, as we do have some deferred maintenance money set aside for roofing projects and things of that nature.
Yeah, so where we're at right now, we're at the public hearing for the budget. June 18th, we'd have budget adoption. So there's always time to change the budget. It's just our plan. And we look at it, we constantly make changes to it. This last year with the board's help and Superintendent Lucci Garcia and Heather Leslie, we, made decisions to save money, and it helped. And so it's going to put us in a better situation for this next year and the following year. So anytime we didn't fill positions, anytime, we saved money and not done, then we're able to save that money for the next year. And we want to, basically, give the students what they deserve and put all that money out there. But we want to make sure that we don't leave, any on the table either that is just extra. So our district can meet its obligations by continuing to pull from fund balance, which was our savings. But it must continue to monitor expenditures and enrollment to ensure positive balance in the upcoming fiscal years. The district still has approximately 1.1 million to reduce if we have this plan in place. These reductions would need to be effective in the following year, 25-26. And we want to avoid that so that we don't have a negative qualified budget. So the district is certifying a positive proposed budget. We're meeting our reserve requirements with the state. We have enough in the savings account based on what we're proposing.
And so if I could just really quick, CBO Leslie. So just to clarify, the reason why we put that notation in there is we have, the board is very clear on, and as Trustee Ross had kind of alluded to, we still have that 1.1, 1.2 that we knew was going to be a necessity to cut. But the key is going to be is, I talked about before, is it's not so much what this year looks like we're making positive for those 3 years, which is great. But as soon as we have to go next year and pull that new year 27, 28, what is that going to look like as we've continued to deficit spend down that fund balance? So that's where we want to make sure that it's in place, if those things are in place timely enough, so that it doesn't reflect poorly when we have to do this again in 25, 26. Okay. Any more questions right now?
I
Or
have
later?
questions.
Okay.
But I think a lot of that pertained more to kind of our plan and operation and how we're planning on alleviating some of our outside contracting sources and our special ed. So I know, thank you for your time and your effort in putting these together. And I will save those questions for Dr. Meyer.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Okay. Right, now we're moving on to the public hearings. So the way that works, I'm going to gavel in and open the hearing. If anybody has something they'd like to say about that item, please come up and say it. After everybody's spoken who wants to speak, we will close the hearing and move to the next one. So with that, we will open the hearing on public hearing on adoption of transitional kindergarten and English language development instructional materials. And are there any speakers on that? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public hearing. All right. The second will be the public hearing on the local control and accountability plan for 24-25. The hearing is open. And are there any speakers? Seeing none, we will close the hearing. And on to 7C, the public hearing on the 24-25 Auburn Union School District proposed budget. And we'll open that hearing. Does anybody have any comment on that? All right, seeing none, we will close that hearing. Okay, so the public hearings are closed. We will move towards looking at adopting those at our next special board meeting. And at that, it is 8:44. Let's round up to 8:45 and take a 10-minute recess before we come in for public comment. So we'll be back in at 8:55. Thank you. after, and we're going to get into public comment. So item 7 here, public comment. This is going to be for items not on tonight's agenda. We're going to be limiting that to 7 speakers. After that, we'll add the additional speakers on at the end of tonight's meeting after the rest of the agenda. Okay, so with that, we'll start with the first one. It's 3 minutes per individual. If you're using an interpreter, it'll be 6 minutes. So our first speaker.
Okay, we have Mrs. R.D. Malali. Mrs. R.D. Malali, okay.
Thank you. I wanted to come tonight to speak to what the character of those who are on the board who have been attacked personally and their character. And I'm speaking specifically of Jason Wedge and Greg Holt, the two that I know that have been spoken of in a very slanderous way in our community. We as a community voted these members, and in Miss Renee Grigsby as well. We voted these members in the Board of Supervisors, excuse me, school board members in as trustees that would be promoting values that we as a community want to see continue. We're a conservative community, and we trust the trustees to teach our children values that represent us as a community. And so I'm here to say, I know Jason Wedge personally and have come to really honor and respect his integrity. I've heard Mr. Holt's bio, and I am just absolutely impressed with how he served both of these gentlemen, how they serve sacrificially, and they're very, very supportive of children and the integrity and value of children. So I just wanted to come and say, I wholeheartedly support Jason Wedge and Greg Holt and Miss Renee in continuing the conservative values that we have and in this community, and voted them in. So I support them. As I was at a meeting to hear the mayor of Auburn, and I'm sorry, I see 5 minutes on a clock, so
We're timing it here because the timer, we have it
does the
glitched.
timer not?
We have a timer, a secondary timer going.
Okay.
Yep.
So a minute left. Thank you. Anyway, absolutely appalled, disgusted that they would announce a pride, homosexual sodomy, promoting.
Ma'am,
And
if it's about the city council, that's not our jurisdiction. So
okay,
that's not something.
so just to say, in our schools, would appreciate that the school board pays close attention to what's in our curriculum and not promoting an agenda that would be destructive to children, being it transgender, CRT, the 1619 project would have children to actually disrespect our country. So just to promote values that are healthy and promote values that encourage and grow our children well. Also to say, I'm really impressed with all what was talked about tonight. I just applaud each and every one of the people that are serving our children in this district. It's amazing. So I do want to applaud
and that's
each
3
and every
minutes.
effort.
That's 3
Thank you.
minutes. Thank you. Okay. Got it. Okay. Got it figured out. Thank you. Lauren Dickey.
Hello. As a relatively new member of this community and somebody who is working to become educated about the issues that are affecting us all, and as a resident who lives within the Auburn Unified School District, and somebody who believes in preserving the integrity and enhancing the quality of our public education system, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Wedge, for your very public proposed proclamation to the City Council that we must not tolerate any form of witchcraft, idolatry, or child sacrifice. Now, I'm thanking you because in proposing this proclamation, you have reinforced my own decision to support your recall. Mr. Wedge, in a letter from his lawyer to the Gold Country Media, has claimed that a flyer sent in support of his recall efforts has compromised his ability and integrity and is impacting his ability to effectively serve his community. The reality is, Mr. Wedge, that you need no flyer to help you ineffectively serve your community. I signed my name on a flyer. I signed my name on the petition and I received no such flyer. However, the reality is that you're ineffective.
We can't hear you. Sir, it's to address the board anyways. So please, ma'am, this isn't a back and forth. So she's trying to speak up just like we all have. Ma'am, please.
The reality is that Mr. Wedge is ineffective because through his own polarizing and extremist statements and proclamations, he continues to illustrate that he's fundamentally unfit for this office and any other public office he might aspire to. Thank you, Mr. Wedge, for showing us who you are and the values that you bring to the table when you represent us.
Alicia Watkins.
Standing room only. Hi, everybody. Deep breaths. Okay, so more than 300 years ago, almost 200 people were suspected of witchcraft and 20 plus innocent people were murdered in Salem. Between 40 and 60,000 innocent people were killed worldwide for the exact same reason. 8 years ago, 49 innocent people were murdered in a place known for celebration and joy. 8 years ago today, and we will never forget Pulse. Evangelical-led laws, kill the gay laws, have taken place in Africa. Putin jails any queer people in Russia. You can't even have same-sex marriages committed in Israel. You have to leave the country and then come back and register your marriage with their government. And there are at least, the last time I checked, 13 countries where it's illegal to be queer, where I can go and be killed. The Declaration of Independence clearly states that all people are endowed by their creator, the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Their creator, meaning my creator is of my choosing and your creator is of your choosing, not the creator. The First Amendment of the Constitution begins with Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the exercise thereof, which means this book on witchcraft and this book, the Holy Bible, carry the exact same weight and protection in these United States of America.
Sir, please.
I am speaking. Thank you. Okay. Jason, you and I have had conversations. You're not a bad person. I respect you. I just had a great conversation with your wife. I helped your little kid get a dinosaur out of the tree. Okay. There are no bad people sitting on this board. But when you get into an elected position, the freedom of the opinions that we all have the freedom to believe whatever we want to believe. But when you become an elected official and you represent a certain position, and then you go into another government entity and you voice a position telling people their days are numbered, that's not you. I don't even know you, but I don't believe that's you. So I didn't want to come here with some cold prepared speech. I didn't want to come here with anger and rage. I'm tired of the anger. I want to build the bridges. I want to repair the division. So that's why I'm here. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for your time.
Now, before our next speaker comes up, I just want to ask everybody, please refrain from interrupting when there's a speaker at the podium. Regardless of who it is, what they're saying, please let them say their piece without interruption. Thank you.
Catherine McBride.
Hello. Good evening. Auburn School Board and Superintendent Garcia. My name's Catherine McBride, and I'm a North Auburn homeowner, and I work as a substitute teacher in special ed for Placer County Office of Education. And I was so sad and disappointed to hear of the recall proceedings for Jason and Greg. I have known Jason for several years and helped to distribute literature to voters for his campaign. I am here to vouch for his character. He is a man of high integrity, and I'm sure Greg is too. I just don't know him as well. He is a man, he's honest and a good family man and a hard worker. He has dedicated many hours to his position on the school board and is passionate about helping others, especially protecting children. In light of the recent action at the Capitol regarding AB 1955, removing parental notification regarding transitioning children, it feels like Pride Month is in support of keeping parents in the dark and that there is an agenda. We need to keep our parents in the loop and honor their wishes if we are to retain students. Also, I am a member of the Placer County Freedom Coalition, which is not an anti-government group. We are a group of patriots who love our Constitution and value our freedom. I hope that all of you value your freedom as well, and I appreciate your time and hard work and dedication. Thank you so much.
Hannah Liebert.
I think we can all agree that the transformation into the 3 K-8 schools is going to be difficult for all the students. For many of them, this is their 3rd school in 3 years, and others are being pulled away from the only school they have ever known. And some have to leave the middle school they have grown to know and love to go back to an elementary school that is not able to support the same programs as a comprehensive middle school. Take sports, for example. How are sports going to continue to be strong and prepare the students for high school sports? For many students, sports are an outlet that they can count on as a way to navigate their stress. These different programs help them express their academic freedom to pick what they want or interested in and build knowledge in those areas for a future career. Middle school is already a really awkward part of growing up, and by breaking them apart is only going to cause more harm than good. Once this transition happens, kids are going to need support emotionally and academically. My question is, how strong are these resources going to be for them? And will all 3 schools be able to have them? I would also like to address the lack of support for our students who are part of the LGBTQ community. One of their board members insulted the LGBTQ community by connecting them with satanic worship and child sacrifice. How are these students supposed to trust their board members when they are disrespected by them? You guys are trying to be leaders, but you guys don't really know who you're leading. Thank you.
Taylor McArdle.
I'd like to open with a word of prayer, so please take your hats off. Dear Lord, thank you so much for the opportunity for this community to get here and gather in this room. We have a lot of people who care about their beliefs, but most importantly, Lord, we have a lot of people who care about the children of this community. And above all else, you care not for anyone else more than you care for your children. You state that over and over. Lord, we pray for the ultimate protection of our children in this community. And as a council that we're all gathered here together, that our mission is to further the education, the safety, and the well-being of the children that live here. Amen. Council, thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak tonight. I'd like to firstly start by saying it's clear the 5 of you are here because you care about your community, you care about the children you're representing. So my word of advice is focus on your strengths and each other's strengths. And if you can ignore your weaknesses or use other people's weaknesses and improve upon, learn more about yourself. If you're aware of the mother and father have differences and if you're focusing on the things that are wrong with the other person, it's mostly the children that suffer the most. So if you can work together and find your strengths and how to interact, that would be most eventful. Every minute you spend shadow campaigns or trying to stab your partners in the back or nuzzying up to the superintendent, or whoever else is a state employee. We have local government here. To the audience that comes here tonight and voices your opinions, you're talking to your neighbors, even if you're a Sodom and Gomorrah transplant. These are your neighbors now. And if the financial budget of this board, of this school district fails, you will be having DMV California employees run your children's schools. And you can see out of the 7 people up here, 5 are the most engaged with you. And I venture to say that that's your 5 neighbors employed by a local government, not your state-run superintendents, Gavin Newsom appointed. So no offense to you, madam, but that's my statement tonight is don't be a single issue voter. You're offended by the word of one man. Don't have such fragility that you ignore the other issues. We have a budget to correct, and without the budget, you'll have a state-run board here and there'll never be anything done. Thank you.
Now, this President Holt, while the board can't engage in a back and forth, we can clarify. And to that point, the superintendent, the interim superintendent was appointed by this board, and the incoming superintendent was also appointed by this board.
Okay, Bristol Scanlon.
Good evening. I came here to say that this board has done many things that they shouldn't have. I want to say that I am not afraid of you, Mr. Wedge, or your threats. You seem to be far more bothered with me and our little community, which is sad because I am love. I come from love, and my religion is love. How very boring would this world be if we were all the same? Kind of like the future of our school system. Boring instead of creative, boring instead of supportive, boring instead of desired. This whole board has been and continues to be more and more unbelievable. The board a way to make it better. Instead, they are drastically worse and worse. I want the hate away from my children. I want that hate out of the Auburn school district. I want the school system and the board to utilize its resources to make the schools better, not to abuse the board's power by implementing their rigid agendas. I asked to recall Jason Wedge, and I asked to recall Greg Holt, and I have a petition for anybody interested in signing at the end of this meeting. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So that was 7 speakers for now. So everybody else who still wants to speak, we're going to move that to the end of tonight's agenda so we can still get through some of these action items.
May me just ask how many comments we have left? Gotcha.
So-
Thank you very much.
Okay, so moving to item 9A, AUTA comments.
Good evening and happy Pride Month as proclamated by our mayor on Monday at the city council meeting. We finished yet another chaotic year, and this year we are 25 less teachers and 30 less classified staff members. Why? Because of the climate here. When the new board came on, one of their promises was to listen to the teachers and their voices. To this date, I have not seen this, but what I have seen is constant, blatant disregard to staff and a board member who feels he can send text messages that are inappropriate and unacceptable. You are an elected member of the school board and you should carry yourself in a professional manner. Who holds you accountable? I'd really like to know. Your behavior and lack of common sense impact all of us. Being on the front page of the newspaper does not help our school district. It does not help our students. It does not help our staff, and it does not help our community. If you are a staff member at AUSD that had behaved like this, there are protocols for disciplinary actions that would be followed. An incident or incident report would be documented, and you would have been given a performance plan to change your behavior. We keep hearing about all of these hard choices that are being made, but all I see is more deficit spending. 6.5 million this year on outsourcing services, and the budget for next year is saying 6.8 million. How is this doing the hard things? There is no money that is being cut, and we're continually spending. Which brings to ADA. It was stated earlier this evening that we have 1,300 students. But when you look at the estimated students for next year, it's more like 1,450. Where are those 100 students? Why are they not coming to school? Who's asking those questions? The district spent over 5.6 million on SPED services. What is the plan for that number to go lower next year? Our mental health services went from $7,000 to over $25,000 budgeted for next year. What is that plan and what does that look like? In addition, we have a $180,000 California Community Schools Partnership Act grant. What are we doing with those funds? Another question, there's child development funds that we're receiving from the state, 99,000 this year and literally doubling next year to 198,000. When are our smallest students going to benefit from those funds? And the capital outlay fund are projects being done for all the school sites and the playgrounds, having only 300,000 left to back up in case anything happens is unnerving. Not taking into the account of the recent incident that happened at Auburn Elementary in the kindergarten area, where the HVAC unit vents are pretty much not salvageable from workers that were there to repair them. I don't know about you, but I have some legitimate questions about this budget and how it will be solved with consistent overspending and lack of planning. How are we going to attract and retain high-quality employees who want a future in AUSD and the Auburn community? In solidarity, Sarah Liebert, AUTA President.
All right, and do we have CSEA here tonight? Okay, doesn't look like it. Moving then to item 10. Our consent agenda, which I would like to pull 10B and 10F4. Yeah, 10F4. Correct. 10, yeah, 10, yeah, sorry, F4. Yep.
No, you got it.
Okay, all right. Anything else?
I'll second.
Oh, well, I need to actually make a motion. And so if there's nothing else to pull, I move that we approve the consent agenda, less items 10B and 10F4.
Okay, now I'll second.
Great. All right, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
And those opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. So to item 10B, get through my notes here. Just want to welcome Catherine Putke. She is the new incoming principal for Auburn Elementary, whose leadership and vision promise to guide us into a bright and successful future. Catherine has an impressive 27 years dedicated to education. She brings to us a wealth of experience and insight. Throughout her career, she's embraced various leadership roles, including principal, intervention administrator, and lead teacher. Her approach to leadership is deeply collaborative, and she believes firmly that student success is achieved when we work together and harness our collective strengths and wisdom. So I'd like to welcome Catherine Putke to the district. And with that, I move that we approve item 10B.
I'll second.
All right, and all those in favor?
Aye.
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 And those opposed? Seeing none, carries. And item 10F4. This is an item about renewing a contract with consulting. And at the request of the incoming superintendent, I don't think that we'll be needing those services next year.
My question, I was going to pull it as well, but it says it's a ratification, but it looked like it wasn't fully signed or executed. So I just wanted to clarify that we still have the opportunity.
Correct.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. I'll second.
Okay. All right. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? All right. Seeing none, the motion carries. And we've struck that. Okay. Moving right along. Let's see where I put my agenda. Moving to item 11A, approval of Frog Street Transitional Kindergarten and Cengage Learning 6th to 8th grade English language development curriculum adoptions.
Frog Street is a comprehensive program that covers language and literacy, mathematics, science, social studies, fine arts, physical development, social studies, technology, social and emotional development. And this is for our youngest learners, our TK students. You heard a little bit about this evening when Emily Clark, Vivier, and Kara Schwint spoke. Frog Street provides developmentally appropriate, hands-on, project-based, engaging lessons for all senses and leverages, and leverages skills from multiple areas of development simultaneously, therefore developing the whole child. Administration recommends approval of Frog Street.
Are there any questions?
Trustee Ross, I was able to talk with Miss Kara and Miss Emily at the EV Kane kindergarten and TK roundup. And a lot of the teachers were really excited for bringing this curriculum on board. And it felt like our instructional coaches were really, really, really behind this. So I just want to reiterate that I think this is something our teachers and staff agree with.
And I'd like to add that this is also to approve LIFT, which is for our middle school English learners. So I apologize, I stopped a little too soon in my rationale.
And clarifying question, and I think I just read it. That's a part of the EL master plan. Thank you.
With that, I move that we approve the Frog Street TK and Cengage Learning 6th to 8th grade English language development curriculum adoptions.
I'll second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
And those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next is going to be approval of resolution -24-1 requesting collection of charges on Placer County.
Annually, the board must approve a resolution requesting taxes on the Community Facility District CFD 1999-1 be levied by the County of Placer pursuant to Section 53311 of the Government Code. Administration recommends approval.
I move that we approve resolution 23-24-15.
And I'll second that. And clerk, if you please conduct a roll call vote.
Absolutely. President Holt,
Aye.
Clerk Grigsby, aye. Clerk Brickler,
Aye.
Clerk, Trustee Wedge,
Aye.
and Trustee Ross.
Aye.
Gave you a title change.
Motion carries 5-0. Next approval, item C, approval of resolution 23-24 convening and appointing members of the District Advisory 7-Eleven Committee.
As the board may remember, CBO Leslie discussed not having the appropriate number of members for this committee. Since then, we have found and secured these members. So all the categories of applicants have been filled, and administration recommends approval.
I'm grateful to these individuals for volunteering to serve on this committee. And I'm grateful to see that we have more than 7. I think we are at risk if we have close to 7, if somebody doesn't show for a meeting or doesn't, attend regularly, that this committee falls apart. Start over, and I'm not going to procedure if you are to go under 7. My primary concern is that the intent of a committee like this is that we are acting as stewards of public funds, and that we have to try to identify the best and kind of highest use, there's a term, the best use for these properties. And in order to be good financial stewards, to be able to find ways for the sale of these properties to benefit our students. And I think that this committee would function best if there were a balanced representation of the various groups that we seek to have on the committee. I noticed that there are 3 individuals who live in the neighborhood that that shares a property line with one of the properties in question. And I'm wondering how we can strike a balance of having that perspective, but not having an overrepresentation.
Thank you, Leslie. So while they have requirements that we meet the certain categories at a minimum and have a minimum of 7 to 11, as you said, members, there's no requirements or procedures as far as eliminating or striking a balance between them. In fact, they actually encourage oftentimes people who have direct connections to the properties or in the general area to attend and participate. And just so everybody has a reminder, it is an advisory committee, again, just like anything else. So they would bring recommendations to the board. And again, the charge of the 7-Eleven committee isn't to come up with brand new and amazing ways. Really, the focus of the 7-Eleven committee is to declare formally whether or not a property is considered surplus. And then they can recommend the sale of the property. Then it comes to the board as to whether or not they can go forward. Did I miss anything, Kathy?
I want to reiterate. The advisory committee and it is actually the board. That's really important distinction.
I mean, one idea I had is that if we could try to encourage others to attend, it would balance that, the fact that we have 1/3 of the committee members currently. Again, share the property line with the property surplus. I feel like the feedback we'll receive will be skewed towards that perspective. And I have to say, I really understand this. There is probably being developed, and obviously I would rather I understand and appreciate that perspective, but I still have a concern that we have an overrepresentation from the Heritage Oaks homeowners. So I thought we could have a conversation about how we might be able to better balance our committee membership so that we don't have a skewed perspective.
Trustee Ross, I just want to add that I do see some names on here that are on the opposite spectrum. And I see some real estate agents. I see some retired teachers, staff in school that really don't have a connection to that area.
Yeah.
So I hear your concern, Trustee Brickler. And I also just want to acknowledge that I do see some names on here that I feel really confident are valued community members and esteemed members of our community that really want our schools to benefit from this. So I hear you. And I think there's a good, vast, diverse crew.
Can we continue to add members if others come forth, or do we have to go through another resolution process if we were to add up to 11?
Yeah, you can add members up to 11. And again, this also happens if you have a member that drops out. You then continue to advertise. And so it is open up to 11 members, and you can even have some that are on like a waiting list, if you will, in case somebody chooses to drop out or is unable to attend regularly. So it can be a consistently moving process as well. And we don't have to do another resolution for it. Once you've established the committee formally that you have enough members, then they can be added on through the application process.
I want to be clear that I don't seek to bar members of that group from attending. I just saw that we had heavy representation from a particular perspective that might not have the same interests in mind as a school district that needs the money from a sale of a property to fix a roof. So if I may, Kathy Domenico is in the audience and has a lot of experience in these sort of committees. Oh, well, no, just a question of how have you seen strategies to kind of balance the perspective of a committee, and do you have any suggestions?
Like, unfortunately, you usually don't get enough volunteers.
Yeah.
To meet that minimum threshold. And so districts haven't really been that successful in doing a balance. You're trying to get people that are interested in a topic that honestly isn't that interesting. Committee members, especially if they don't. And I think what I'm advising you to take it for what it is. Not that the board would disagree necessarily with the recommendations, but you may end up with a split recommendation. And that's very common. See, a majority of the group has one recommendation and there are some members that have a different recommendation. That's part of the record and it's all part of the information that you receive and make your decision based. So I think you're gonna find you're not just gonna get this finite, but you're going to, you might, but and that will help advise you. So that's probably the more practical way to handle it. You just can't get a lot of volunteers in this case.
So are you saying we did good in getting this many volunteers?
So are there additional questions?
Just to go off what Ms. Brickler is saying, is there any future idea to ask for more applicants, or is it kind of like we're just feeling content with what we have?
We continue to hold it open again, like I said, so we can even take over and above 11 and just have them on like a wait list. So we'll continue to, well, I should say, staff can continue to put that out there to make sure that we have it on the website. It will remain on the website as long as we have an active 7-Eleven committee so people can apply. And again, if we ever find ourselves short or we're getting short, then we'll go ahead and make sure we have some blasts go out. Yeah.
Once the committee starts meeting, you're going to be hearing information and receiving data. If people are not there to start with, it's hard to make an informed decision. So I want to balance the participation with receiving enough information.
This is Clerk Grigsby. I noticed where it says that it's all 3 properties, correct? So it isn't that they're making a decision on just the one, that split moment, that split meeting. This is for all things going forward. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
And one final point of clarification, though, they aren't making any decisions, just the
Exactly.
recommendations. And it'll be up to the board.
Suggestions.
There we go.
And I would like to also add that with my upcoming absence, your financial advisor, Kathy Domenico, has graciously said that she will lead this committee for us after discussion with your interim CBO that will be coming on as well. So he's aware of that. He's recommended it. So I think you'll be in really good hands, obviously, with Kathy.
There are additional questions, comments? So not seeing any, I move that we approve resolution 23-24-16, convening and appointing members to the District Advisory 7-Eleven Committee.
Second that.
And clerk, if you please conduct a roll call vote.
Absolutely. Let's start with Trustee Ross.
Aye.
Trustee Wedge.
Aye.
Trustee Brickler.
Aye.
Clerk Grigsby, aye. And President Holt.
Aye.
Let's have it.
Ayes have it. Motion carries. Moving to item 11D, approval of resolution 23-20. Should be, is that 23 should be 23-5. 23-24-17 Joint Community Facilities Agreement in connection with the Bond Opportunities for Land Development Program.
Kathy Domenico is here tonight to explain the BOLD program as a method of payment for developer fees. Welcome, Kathy.
Hello. Well, this is my official item tonight. So the BOLD program, and you've got the slides for me.
Yeah, Dave's queuing them
Thank
up
you.
right now.
So just to give you just an overview of what this BOLD program is, a lot of districts throughout the state are taking advantage of these programs to help facilitate the delivery of impact fees to districts. And it can provide an opportunity for enhanced mitigation. In the situation we're talking about tonight, what we want to do is introduce this concept to you. A lot of districts in the county are doing it: Dry Creek, Roseville High, Western Placer. I know I'm missing a few. But it's something that helps us receive impact fees that can be used for capital facilities earlier on in a project than we otherwise would. So what we're asking you to look at tonight is a resolution to join and authorize the use of BOLD. It is not committing you to a specific project. It's not authorizing any funding. It's allowing this to be a tool for the district to utilize if a project arises where it makes sense. And the district was actually approached by a really small development project to utilize the program. And because you haven't authorized the use, we have to go through this process for you to even consider using it for the particular project. So what's in front of you tonight on the next slide is this program offered by the California Municipal Finance Authority, CMFA. It's a statewide joint powers authority made up of different types of public agencies throughout California. It's not just schools, it's cities, counties, and some special districts are part of it. And I mentioned it's a mechanism for home builders to finance their mitigation fees, to finance their impacts. So you recall you've adopted a developer fee study that charges new homes and new businesses a fee per square foot. This is a way for them to pay the fee to you basically in one lump sum. So how BOLD works on the next slide is that a developer makes a request to the district to use the BOLD to finance their fees. If you say yes, so on a project by project basis, you as a board would be able to make that determination. Then you can actually have them file an application with CMFA. CMFA would form a community facilities district, CFD, kind of like you have. That was an earlier agenda item. But it's not your school district name on it. It's the statewide JPA's name on it. They administer it, and there's no cost to the district to do that. That's funded completely separately. And what you receive is your mitigation payment in one lump sum. So it really helps in larger projects, and you don't have a lot of those, but it really can provide this opportunity where we could potentially ask for enhanced mitigation. So in exchange for participating in this program and making it easier for a developer to pay their impact fees, we could actually ask for some more funding. So when we think about our capital funding plan, I've come back to you year after year, and if some of the board members are new, but talking about all the challenges we have in funding our facilities. This is just a way, a mechanism that can be used to at a minimum get what we should be getting and potentially get some additional funding. And I mentioned there is no cost for the district. You don't have any liability for the bonds issued. It's all handled through that separate entity. So just quickly, tonight's board action is for you to consider a resolution to authorize the use of BOLD. Again, it does not obligate the district. If a developer, and we have one waiting in the wings, if they wish to use the BOLD program, we would enter into a separate agreement with them. And that's something that we usually would advise and negotiate ahead of time before it comes to you. So when you have a mitigation agreement in front of you, it's a recommended agreement that we're saying, okay, this project makes sense for BOLD, and it's either at a minimum, we're just getting our fees at one lump sum instead of having to wait for all those homes to be built. And if we can, I'm always trying to pull additional funding into the district, we're going to give you some enhanced mitigation options. But tonight's resolution isn't doing any of that. It's just saying, okay, yeah, this is a tool we would like to use. So I wanted you to, since it's kind of new and kind of different, we wanted to give you just an opportunity to ask questions, make sure you understood what you were taking on. And in the future, we'll come back and I'll explain it again before I have you look at those mitigation agreements and authorize it for the use of individual projects. So this isn't your one shot. I want to make sure you know what you're doing every time you authorize an agreement.
Thank you, Kathy. And if I could really quick, this is CBO Leslie again. I guess the best way I can explain it is, for example, she spoke about that we were approached from a developer, which typically kind of gives me hives, but in this situation, it was for a betterment. It was to bring up this program. If we have homes that are being built, and let's just say there's 50 homes, and they're building them maybe one at a time, two at a time. We're seeing that money coming in $5,000 at a time, $10,000 at a time, maybe 20 if we're lucky. As she mentioned, this would, and so we just kind of have to like hold it aside and wait until we get enough money to do a new roof, or until we have to deal with a sewage issue, or insert concern here. If we're able to get that in one lump sum, we have the possibility of, even with this very small development that we're looking at, get a couple $100,000 at one time and be able to utilize that immediately for projects instead of waiting to gather that.
Or borrowing against it.
Yeah, or borrowing against it. And with the cost of construction and improvements these days, I haven't seen it go down since I started working in construction 25 years ago. I don't think it's going to go down very much. I don't know exactly what the rates are they're looking at right now, or CPIs, or where are we at, like 8% still?
Well, the construction cost index actually declined last year, but the actual cost of construction didn't. It went down by 1.38% last year. But from one project to the next, the cost didn't go down. So tells you how valid the index is.
So it just gives us the opportunity, instead of holding that money and waiting for construction costs to go up while our money's just kind of sitting there, if you can strike while the iron's hot and we have projects we know that we can use, hopefully we'll have more projects than just this one small one, but at least this gives the board and the district a tool, essentially, to get those fees.
Clerk Grigsby, I have a couple of questions, actually. So does us being involved in this, does this just automatically, anything that comes up in the Auburn district limits, just automatically they have to give us those funds for the new development?
So no, it would be project specific.
Okay.
And I've got situations, so I'm going to use Western Placer as an example, just because we've been using it for a few years in Western Placer. They were actually one of the first school districts to authorize the use of BOLD. We had a project come in where it didn't make sense to move forward. The developer applied. We had another CFD in place. The whole situation didn't make sense. We actually didn't recommend the use of BOLD for that particular project. A month later, another project came in. It was the same size, but the finances were different and the situation was different. In that situation, it made sense. So to me, it's very case specific. Some developers want it, some don't. It's becoming more common for the developers to want it. I will just say that. At this point, most are asking for something like this, but I would like to evaluate each one individually, because there are situations where it may not make sense.
And do we have to reach out to them, or do they reach out to us?
They reach out to you. And it's something, if you want to be proactive in it, that is a possibility. You don't have big enough projects where I would worry at this point about being proactive. But like Western Placer, we are being proactive because they've got huge, I mean, we've got 5,000 units coming in. In that situation, we're being proactive.
So for example, I know that forever ago, there was a housing development that was put on hold on Newcastle or New Airport Road.
Yeah.
If that one applied to this, would it have been now that we would get it, back then when they started it?
You would have gotten it at the first building permit. So
we still wouldn't have it.
It actually is really advantageous for schools. And when we talk about what's the negative, if I were you, I'd ask me what's the negative. So the negative is it's a tax burden on the home, but the city or county is going to use that tax burden regardless. So each new home constructed, the land use agency sets a debt burden ratio of the maximum debt burden ratio for the home. It's usually about 1.8% of the value of the home. The city and county are going to bond against that, and or county, depending on who the land use agency is. They're going to bond against that for their infrastructure, for their roads, for their parks. If we can use a portion of it for schools, great. But they're going to bond against it regardless. So in that situation, with some of these projects that are kind of going through a long planning phase, it's too late if they've already done their development program. They've already used that 1.8%. So we couldn't come in after the fact and say, oh, we would like to do it. So there's situations like that where it just won't work, because you cannot put the tax burden on the home more than what that threshold is that's set. And that's to the benefit of the homeowners. So anyways, to answer your question with that project, it's too late once it has moved forward.
Well,
unfortunately.
actually, sorry, CBO Leslie again, they have done their infrastructure, but they haven't actually pulled any building permits yet.
Yeah.
And they may or may not have approached
But
me
if,
with
but if they
this.
have the infrastructure, they probably already have the debt plan set.
They're the ones that approached.
Oh, they're the ones that are oh, then they've already got it in. Oh, so then they're the ones that built it in.
Mhm.
I didn't realize that was the same project.
Finally building it.
I didn't realize it was the same project. Yeah. So if they built it in, then that's good to go. So they have to build that into their funding plan.
So Trustee Wedge, I was kind of going to touch on your question as well, but to kind of expand that a little bit, let's say like a project gets halfway through, like 20 units. So we use this program and we get, for the 20 units, say halfway through, the market falls or whatever happens. Are we still on that? Are we on the hook for that?
No, they already paid for it. That's actually one of the big advantages is you're funded up front and it doesn't matter. If they don't pull that next building permit for 20 years, you're already funded. Here's the negative there. They would still owe you impact fees. So they may not have paid you enough out of the BOLD program. So they would still be responsible for paying you the difference between that impact fee at the time they actually pull the building permit and what they funded you. So your risk is that a portion of the money wouldn't come until later, but it's not that bad a risk. So this does not eliminate their obligation to pay you the full school fee at the time they pull the building permit. We would not allow that in a mitigation agreement.
Trustee Brickler, it almost sounds too good to be true.
I
I'm
know.
just trying to figure out how it gets funded or.
It's funded through CFDs. It's funded through the same mechanism. You guys have a CFD over several properties. That's the funding mechanism. So it is a tax. Again, it's a tax that's put on new homes. It's not something that you're putting on existing residents. And it's part of the infrastructure plan. So, and the first time I saw it for Western Placer, you would not believe the conversations we had with legal counsel just to figure out what are we missing? What are we missing? We've been doing this with several of the districts for years, and I actually have nothing to do with the program, but I recommend it all over the place. I mean, we are not affiliated at all, but it makes a lot of sense for some of these school projects. And cities are doing it too. This isn't just schools. This is it. When they're issuing their debt, it's more efficient also. When we're thinking of our little geography, there's not a lot of efficiencies there. They're able to issue debt statewide, and there's a lot more economies of scale for them. Question?
Are there any additional questions there? Okay, seeing none, I move that we approve resolution 23-24-17 joint community facilities agreement in connection with the bond opportunities. Oh.
Absolutely. I'll start with President Holt. And Clerk Grigsby, aye. Trustee Brickler.
Aye.
Trustee Wedge.
Aye.
And Trustee Ross.
Aye.
5-0.
All right, and moving on to item 11E, resolution number 23-24-18, gratitude for we know our time with interim superintendent Michelle Lucci Garcia is coming to a close. So whereas Michelle Lucci Garcia served the Auburn Union School District for 5 years as director of curriculum instruction, assistant superintendent for educational services, and whereas Auburn Union facing significant financial difficulties following a 2-decade decline in enrollment and was projected to become insolvent by 2025 without significant budget reductions, and whereas Mrs. Lucci Garcia volunteered to serve as interim superintendent, a significant change in an emotionally charged period, significant scrutiny from the county other local government offices and the media. And whereas Mrs. Lucci Garcia was appointed as interim superintendent in June 2023, immediately led the consolidation of school sites, preparing the district to operate 3 campuses. And whereas Mrs. Lucci Garcia led development of the district's plans to adopt the TK8 model at all campuses. And whereas in a single year, Mrs. Lucci Garcia identified opportunities for budget reductions and with approval executed measures that have moved the district out of immediate concern of insolvency. And whereas Mrs. Lucci Garcia exhibited unwavering commitment for students and a profound dedication to educational excellence within our district. And Mrs. Lucci Garcia's steadfast leadership, realistic planning, and effective management have enabled the potential for the growth and continued success of the Auburn Union School District. And whereas Mrs. Lucci Garcia has consistently demonstrated integrity, passion, and genuine concern for the well-being and success of every student, teacher, and employee under her care, inspiring all members of the Auburn School community to strive for excellence. Now, therefore, that the Board of Trustees extends its deepest gratitude and heartfelt appreciation to Mrs. Lucci Garcia for her outstanding service, leadership, and dedication to the students, staff, and community of Auburn Union School District. The Board of Trustees acknowledges Mrs. Lucci Garcia's significant contributions to the educational excellence within our district, recognizing her valuable impact on the lives of our students and families. The Board of Trustees commends Mrs. Lucci Garcia for her commitment to fiscal responsibility, which has set a standard of excellence for others to emulate. And the Board of Trustees wishes Ms. Lucci Garcia continued success and fulfillment in her future. Like during testament to her dedication to education. Comments, concerns?
I just like to say just how much I personally appreciate you and the job you've done. And, I've said it before in the past, is that, the legacy that you're leaving, pretty overwhelming. I think this resolution lays it out really well. Just the history and the sacrifice that you made. I hope you're honored this day.
Clerk Grigsby, absolutely. This has been a pleasure. Getting to know your whole family. Cool. Us feel is more than so. Thank you so much. Absolutely. Should I give it to you now?
Okay, seeing no other questions or concerns, I move that we approve 23-24-18 gratitude by superintendent.
I'll second.
Please conduct a roll call vote.
Absolutely. Let's start in the middle. Trustee Brickler.
Aye.
Trustee Wedge.
Aye.
Trustee Ross.
Aye.
President Holt.
Aye.
And Clerk Grigsby, definitely aye. And that's 5-0.
Right, and so if you would.
Absolutely. We got you not only a card, flowers, and you know how I like my earrings. So.
Okay. Correct. Okay. All right. And moving to item 12A, board governance, board policy updates.
Okay, the California School Board Association made changes to board policies that the board received in March of 2024 as a first read. These policies are brought back again for a second read and approval.
Are there any questions on those? Okay, I move that we approve item 12A, board policy updates.
I'll second.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And those opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. All right, and moving to item 12B, new business. I don't for this evening. So we'll keep moving right along. On to item 13A, comments from the superintendent.
I just wanted to share that I'm sitting here tonight and I'm reflecting on all the work we've done in the past 5 years. When I came in as the CNI director, as you know, you were discussing earlier, we as a team created a teaching and learning roadmap, and that was just the start of everything. You heard tonight the Ed Services team and how far we've come with Ed Services here in Auburn. I just wanted to thank the parents and the staff and the students for having me here, for allowing me to work with you and create all that we've created in the last 5 years. I want to thank the board for having confidence in me and allowing me to come and do my job. I'm not going to cry, I promise. Trying really hard. And, you know, as I'm stepping down from this role and you have a fabulous, you know, Dr. Meyer stepping into this role, I do so knowing that I'm looking forward to my future. I'm looking forward to your future. And I'll miss you all. And I thank you for everything.
Michelle, we still will see you at our special board meeting this month. Can't get away that quick.
Okay. All right.
So, President Holt, I'd actually like to start my comments tonight by acknowledging Trustee Wedge's comments at a recent Auburn City Council meeting. Those comments were made in his private capacity, and those don't reflect the position of the board. So individuals on this board retain their right to free speech, just like everybody else, and they're encouraged to exercise that right. However, when making public comments, such as public comments at a city council or a board of supervisors meeting, I just want to encourage members of the board to clearly state that statements are personal in nature and not reflective of the position of the board. Now, and Michelle, you know, this is our last regular board meeting together. I didn't say this in the last item, but you know, I really just have to thank you for your hard work in this district and your hard work with me. I've been on the board for 2 months when you stepped up in your position. So I feel like we've been through quite a bit over the last 18 months or so. And I knew even less about school business then than I do now. So really, without you, we couldn't have gotten through some of these major necessary changes in the district. And while we still have cuts to make, we'd be on the precipice of that cliff right now if we didn't have you. And really appreciate everything that you've done with us. So again, really grateful. Thank you, recognize the teachers and staff for their work this year. It really has been a year of change, and we've got more adjustments coming into the next school year. But we should be stabilizing. That's the goal. We still have some cuts to make. There's still some big lifts. But now that we're starting to level out, I think we're able to get more time that we can focus on our efforts and energy on the academic opportunities in the district. And I'm really looking forward to getting into that. So thank you, and we'll move it to the rest of the board.
So I just want to, or do you want to say something?
Sure. Very briefly, this is Trustee Brickler. I just want to also thank our teachers and our staff, just because we just wrapped up the school year, and want to acknowledge just the tremendous hard work that you put into educating our students, and seeing it on the parent side, just seeing you know, how much you mean to these to your students, and we were just so we had such great years, and we're so sad to say goodbye to the teachers and all of the staff that make our schools welcoming and productive places for our kids to learn. So just wanted to express my deep gratitude for how hard you all work and how much care you demonstrate. And I see how much energy it takes to do this job, and I hope you have great summers and get to kind of like refresh, so that hopefully you can come back and join us again in the fall, because we're so grateful for the positive impact that you have on our students.
Sorry for jumping ahead there. Yeah. I just want to, you know, thank you, President Holt, for that. I was going to bring that up as well, that, you know, first, I just want to thank all the comments tonight, you know, expressing, you know, your First Amendment, and my comment at the Auburn City Council, that was in a capacity as a private citizen and not representing this board as a whole. And so just want to leave it there. Thank you.
This is Trustee Ross, and wow, was this a year. there was so much change so quickly, and we're about to watch another outpour of change happen. And I can't ask for our community to come together stronger than right now. There's going to be dramatic changes for our children. My child will see his third year at another school ever since kindergarten. And so I know this is hard for a lot of parents. There's a lot of drastic things going on. And I just ask that you please come together. This is our community, and we are elected officials, and we must and have to listen to our community, and we have to hear you, and what you say we have to value and bring back here. So please continue to reach out to us. If there is to be disappointment, it should only be in our leadership. I'm so proud of our teachers, and I'm almost in tears saying I am so saddened by how many teachers and staff are moving on. That is our biggest change, is that our students will not walk into classrooms and see familiar faces that make them safe and comfortable. With that dramatic change, we're also going to have a lot of professional development, which we heard about tonight. And as we were learning earlier, staffing to increase staff is going to cost a lot of money per staff. So we have a lot of work to do, and it's really going to be in the hands of our to really together and make this happen. Let us know what works, what's not working, and how we can make that better, because we are listening to you. So thank you for all you've done. I also want to send a shout out to Trustee Brickler for hearing one of our parents' frustration about not having a yearbook for the Auburn Elementary. And I believe there were a couple nights we were up till 3 a.m. and working so hard. Her students don't even go to Auburn Elementary, and she's working to get that for us. And I'm just so grateful that we have leaders like her that continue to shine. So.
Pardon me, I wasn't speaking into the microphone. So now we will resume public comment. And again, it's 3 minutes. And please be courteous to each other.
Connie Brocker.
Where she left.
Okay. Pat Pistone.
Good evening, President Holt and trustees. My name is Pat Pistone, and I too want to say thank you for the hard work that everyone, including teachers and all of you, have put in this whole year. It's not been easy for anyone. And I'm sure it hasn't been easy for parents and even for the children in this community. So I'm here tonight to say that I do not support the signing of the petition to mess up this board, because we're already in a mess. We need to move forward and come together as a community can do, if people are willing to be kind and show kindness. Again, sometimes when you don't agree, we've lost an ability when you don't agree with someone to just, shine them off or be ugly and not use your kindness. So, maybe we can get back to that, work at that this year. So that for the betterment of our students. I'm going to be doing a lot of substituting this coming year, so I'm really looking forward to it. And being with the students again. I'm a retired teacher in this district. And so anyway, I'm for children. So I come tonight to place my concerns for the children, all children in our community, no matter what agenda you're coming from in your beliefs. We're all most adults here tonight. So, adults are able to make good decisions. Little children, our little TKs and our kindergartners and our young people are going through just as much confusion as we're going through as adults. And when it comes to their gender and that type of thing that we're dealing with, it's very confusing. to little minds who are not ready to receive. It's kind of like trying to teach algebra to kindergartners. You know, it's like their little minds aren't quite ready for certain things. So tonight I come to you with just one example board of a book, and it's called Feel Good to Be Yourself. And this is written by LGBTQ author, beautiful illustrator, also who is a transgender. And these are the type of books that are coming, and this is just one. There are many others. And I just want to read a couple pages for you that concern me. So this page here, page 19, picture of a little baby, and it says, you see, when you were born, you couldn't tell people who you were or how you felt. They looked at you and made a guess. Maybe they got it right, maybe they got it wrong. Yeah, so very confusing.
Tanya Reed.
Do I have to do anything here? Okay. Thank you for your attention and your work. I'm a deeply concerned parent of a middle schooler who values relationships in my community and in the schools. And I feel compelled to speak for literally every single person that I know who lives, works, and raises kids in the Auburn Union School District and participates in life in Auburn, that make it a truly lovely, colorful, supportive, safe, and fun place to be. The actions we have seen here unfolding, the drastic changes, and many of the behaviors we have seen here on full display are alarming and do not represent one single person I know. In fact, we are deeply disturbed by your attitudes, disrespectful demeanor, your abuse of power, and your complete disregard for the values our educators work hard to uphold. Values that make our children feel accepted, loved. Lack of care and ability to connect with the community. We're making decisions and remember that we not align in a safe environment for all students. Meeting of our American in June is Pride Month in Auburn, a place in which all persons feel welcome, valued, safe, and respected. Mr. Wedge, we are defeated with bizarre and threatening rhetoric, including notions of witchcraft, idolatry, and child sacrifice. Ideas that stem from deeply conspiracy theories. Or consider marginalized groups of people in our community. That could affect our children's safety and education. I implore every member of this board and community to consider the impact of this agenda, which has been clear. By dismissing the importance of diversity and inclusion, you alienate children, stifle creativity, and perpetuate harmful and violent biases and prejudices. Your time.
Salam Abraham.
Evening, President Holt and trustees. My name is Salam Abraham. I wanted to thank this gentleman here for his comments and the lady who was here as well. I really like their comments. I really like the idea that they're trying to go beyond the petty politics that are playing out right now. The recall is stupid. It's a waste of time. It's, you know, it's fine. Those people can do that. They can waste their time and money on that. But the thing that bothers me is the slander that's contained within the message. And it's not just the accusation that Mr. Wedge is a member of an anti-government group, which also is, casts aspersions on all the people that attend those meetings, including myself. But they also accused Trustee Wedge and President Holt of violating laws or guidelines of the board or of this school board, and of harming parents and students and teachers and things like that. And those are just reckless comments. They're not serious, and they really, to me, are really just politics that are intending to. They don't solve any problems. It's really just politics, and that's what's bothering me. Excuse me. And so, with regards to the comments that Jason made, Mr. Wedge, he's a good friend of mine, and I know him. I know his heart, and the message really was intended for people with ears to hear and eyes to see. It was a message from a higher power, and I think it's hard for people to hear that message. And at the same time, I would admonish Mr. Wedge to realize, as a friend, that he is a public official now, and those kinds of comments can be misconstrued, and so maybe in the future to keep those comments until you're not maybe out of office. But what the thing that really bothers me is that this recall is going after two people that actually came onto the board and turned it around, and in conjunction with the other board members, actually are doing a service to the community, and they're being vilified for it. And it really, in particular, it bothers me that the person who really should be being vilified, Miss Ross, and I'm not going to turn this into a diatribe against you, because I think that you genuinely do care. The fact that you're all here doing this, a couple times a month really, actually means something. But I just don't think you're mature enough for this job. And I think that in time, you'll hopefully learn that, and that you will improve and consider what you've done to harm the board actually, and the work that they're doing. Thank you.
Paul Gilbert. Paul Gilbert.
That's better. I'm here to talk for my friend Jason. I'm addressing the board too. I'm addressing the room. We've had a vocal problem. I'd like to reclaim my time. I'd like to reclaim my time. I'd like to reclaim my time. Point of order. Awesome. I'm here to speak tonight for my friend Jason Welch. It's been fun to listen to everybody draw up their opinions on a couple of comments that he made. But I actually know his heart as a friend, and the love that he has for children, and the love that he has for his job. I'd say, as far as the conspiracy theories go, I gotta tell you, I'm getting tired of being right. I wish that I was wrong. But when he says the things that he says, I don't think that he's really necessarily talking about going to the extreme. I think he's talking about the child mutilation and things like that. And when he talks about the days of the board being numbered, he's not wrong. The Patriot movement is mobilizing, and we are coming for their jobs. The citizens, we the people, are coming for their jobs. So their days are numbered. Yes, he was not wrong. I don't think that was a political threat. That was a statement. So all that being said, my daughter's a lesbian. I have nothing against the LGBT movement. She grew up, it happened, she fell in love with a girl. Cool, baby. I'm glad you found love. Love is love, and as far as the whole God thing goes, God loves everybody. I'm 100% in on that. And if you want to worship your God as through Jesus Christ, you do that. If you want to do it through Buddha, you do that. It's all up to you. If you want to play around with witchcraft, hey, that's up to you. But the fact of the matter is that this stuff is it's being interjected into our school systems, and our kids are being taught transgender by story time. It's just wrong. You know, I mean, we've got so much stuff going on with these poor little kids. I got into what I do for the Patriot Movement because I wanted our kids to have a future. I wanted our country to have a future. And sitting here watching people attack that I've watched so many great comments tonight of people, you guys just not getting along rather than going together and getting things done that matter to the community, you know. And it's really, really sad to see the attacks on both you and you for standing up for your children. You know, it doesn't belong to where these children are being groomed into an ideology. We need kids to love their country, have morals for the family unit, you know, love mom and dad, you know, that's not asking much, you know. So all that being said, my friend Jason has a heart of gold and he loves children, and that's why he is so passionate about his thoughts. So I digress. Thank you very much.
Claire Walker.
You know, this is the second time this year, and I'm probably going to cry because I am so tired. This is the second time this year that I've stayed until 10:30 to give a comment about something that is just such. Sorry, I'm going to just start over. I am here because I'm an active member of this community, and I am also a believer in Jesus Christ, and I am also an ally of the LGBTQ plus youth of our community. It should be noted that there is nothing wrong with LGBTQ plus youth. They are not an abomination. They are not participating in witchcraft, idolatry, or child sacrifice, and they are not something to be tolerated. They are human beings who are asking for nothing more than to be able to be who they are in this country that claims to be the land of the free and the home of the brave. And I'm not trying to push any kind of social or political agenda. I'm simply standing in support. I'm just standing here in support of basic human rights, basic human dignity that should be given to all students, all people, regardless of how they identify. I have heard some rhetoric in our community among those who claim to be believers in Jesus Christ along the lines that the LGBTQ plus community is a degradation of humanity. This is not the teachings of the Jesus Christ that I know. Friends, I am here to tell you that that is not the rhetoric of Jesus. He calls you all beloved. He calls you his own, and he believes that you're good because you are good. So trustees and community members, because it's Pride Month, I want to give you some stats. Did you know that according to a 2022 national survey of LGBTQ youth mental health, 45% of LGBTQ youth seriously considered attempting suicide in the past year? That's horrendous. However, did you also know that LGBTQ youth who found their school to be affirming reported lower rates of attempting suicide? Furthermore, youth who live in a community that is accepting of LGBTQ people reported significantly lower rates of attempting suicide than those who do not. So this is on us as a community, as a school board, to set the tone, to let our youth know that they are valued and welcome and loved, and to show up for them and cheer for them. So my friends, I'm here for you and with you always and forever to be a safe place for you. I have a gaggle of your community members who feel the exact same way. So friends, come as you are. Happy Pride.
Donna Stafford on behalf of Suzanne Scotton.
Hi,
Suzanne Scotton couldn't be here, so I'm reading her comment for her. She says, my name is Suzanne Scotton, and I'm a retired national award-winning teacher that served in the Auburn Union school system for 11 years as an 8th grade English teacher before retirement. I'm appalled at what is happening in our district and community. I specifically want to address the statements by Jason Wedge and others at the recent city council meeting regarding Pride Month that I find particularly disturbing. First of all, I thought we lived in an inclusive community that respected the rights of others, no matter their race, religion, or beliefs. What I heard from the speakers at the meeting was the opposite of that. We live under a constitution that believes in the separation of church and state. But if we're going there, Jesus was first to say not to judge and to love others. This is the New Testament and the good news that Jesus brought to his believers. To call LGBT plus people an abomination of humanity is the exact opposite of inclusion. And to suggest that witchcraft, idolatry, and child sacrifice is somehow connected to our schools or community is absurd. And what was the veiled threat about your days are numbered, voiced by Wedge with no explanation? People with biases such as these have no place on our school board and will do immeasurable harm to our AUSD, students, families, and our community. Students today struggle with all kinds of issues that we older folk didn't have to deal with. As a teacher, my job was to respect each individual and teach critical thinking, not what to think, but how to research, interpret different kinds of information, and come to a logical conclusion on their own so that they would eventually become active, responsible citizens themselves. When I hear people say that teachers are indoctrinating students with some agenda, it makes my blood boil, and more than anything tells me that they have not been in a classroom to see what really goes on. Not every book is read to every child, and CRT is a college course that is not required. The different family values that exist within our community are respected and honored, and no teacher I have ever met is pushing an agenda. The AUC community needs to be aware of these speakers who push their own personal agenda on the rest of us. As a Christian myself, I respect the beliefs of others, but they have no place being forced in our schools. Please sign the petition so that we can make some changes and have board members who are looking out for our students and our community instead of their own personal agenda. Thank you very much.
Reverend Alex De Silva Soto.
Good evening. I'm the Reverend Alex De Silva Soto. I serve as the minister of Sierra Foothills Unitarian Universalist Church downtown Auburn, and I live a couple blocks from here. Happy Pride Month. And tragically, 8 years ago, on this very day, 49 people were assassinated at Pulse nightclub. While there are questions about the primary motive of this mass shooting, it highlights the importance of teaching our children a culture of peace. Pulse was a space for LGBTQI community and our allies. Therefore, homophobia and transphobia were probably factors in this massacre, which underscores the detrimental importance of fostering a culture of acceptance and belonging in our country, and that starts in our schools. It is deplorable that a board member would engage in homophobic, transphobic speech and veiled threats against the LGBTQI community and our allies right after attempting to delete the diversity, equity, and inclusion statement. Our school board trustees need to set examples of peaceful and democratic engagement, not hate-filled propaganda and toxic theology. How safe do you think students, teachers, and community at large have felt by hearing a member of this board running around spewing hate? It's past time for Mr. Wedge to step down if his goal is homogeneity, inequality, and exclusion. Please do yourself and Auburn a favor by stepping down if you cannot focus on education and making our schools safe environments for everyone, especially the most targeted, marginalized, persecuted students, teachers, and administrators. Shame on you for manipulating religion to camouflage your fear and ignorance. You shall be judged.
Veronica Magana.
Good evening, board. I come here today to speak on a topic that my children are struggling with currently. My son is starting 7th grade next year, and he will have only 2 of his friends that he had from his previous year. This will be his first year that he's been in school that he does not have his best friend in the same school with him. It is so disheartening to see how discouraged my children were the last week of school because they were not going to see any of their friends again anymore. They ask me constantly about sports programs that they absolutely love. I'm paying hundreds of dollars out of pocket to sign my kids up for sports through ARD, through wherever I can, when the school should be offering some of those activities, and they do not. I think it's very disheartening that there is even more clear and evident separation of class in this city. By breaking down these 3 schools, you can see the clear separation. It's so abundant. It is absolutely ridiculous that no one can speak on this. I find it amazing that this was approved and we're going through with this. It astonishes me. I was here speaking to the board years ago when it was voted on which school to consolidate. And I ask that you guys look hard at the numbers and make sure that we are not here in the same financial position 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 years down the road, because from what I know, I've only been in Auburn for 10 years, but this has been an ongoing issue for 20 plus years. I know none of you on the board now were a part of this board for 20 plus years, but it is crazy that this small town with so much support is still in this position. It sucks. With that being said, I did want to touch on what Trustee Wedge mentioned at the city council meeting. Even so, acting in your own personal freedom of speech, you made it clear that you have a bias against a community that you are to serve, to provide a safe educational environment. And that is not what I feel for the children of Auburn District at all. I will not comment on religion. I will not comment on any of that stuff because I don't practice it, so I have no say. But I will say this, as a parent of multiple students in this district, it frightens me should any of my children ever come out as part of this community, how they will be treated by teachers, board members, even their peers at school, because that all the way that these children learn is from us adults. And if they are seeing hate spewed, lies, and honestly, in my opinion, just straight up delusion, that's what they're going to bring to school and share with other students. I am very concerned, and I hope that those who have not signed the petition yet find a petition to sign as soon as possible. Thank you.
Natalie Zapata.
Well, hello. I don't have much to say that people didn't already say and better, but here we go. Seems like there are a lot of Christians in the room. I assume this because you've said it and we've prayed. And my understanding of Christianity is that we're not to judge or treat others with malice. And maybe the best thing to do is just to worry about yourself and your own path and not trying to control others through this dangerous rhetoric. God gave free will, right? So maybe y'all can relax a little bit. This is it's harmful. It's scary. It's scary for the kids to see this because kids are a lot more open-minded and they're a lot more innocent, and I know you guys are probably like, oh, you're making them not innocent. By what? By what? What indoctrination do we have time to do in a classroom? Like, seriously, you have what, a teacher to 30 kids? That's a lot of balancing energy. You have state standards, you have emotional issues to deal with before they can even begin to learn. What time is there? What time is there to do that? Teachers are doing their best to balance that, and I do appreciate that you gave appreciation to the teachers today. That's good. But the teachers are here and they're fighting and they're caring for your children. And I don't know anybody, any of these teachers teaching the witchcraft, and I've never heard anyone even talk about witchcraft and child sacrifice except for, at the Auburn City Council meeting, and that was strange. Anyway, there's not much that I can say, but if this is a room full of Christians, I don't think we judge one another, and maybe relax a little bit. Peace out.
All right, folks, is there any additional public comment?
Can I say something?
You certainly can. We're still going. We'll just ask you, give us a slip afterwards. with your
Awesome.
name on it.
So, good evening, everybody. My name is Craig McCardle, and I wasn't going to even say a word. Came to support Jason Wedge, came to support Greg Holt, but as it turned out, I know Heather, I know Jamie, and you guys seem to be doing a really good job. And I'm not sure where you're going, but it seems like the school district is going to miss you. So good luck to wherever it is on your next adventure. What I would say is, heard everybody speak tonight, and I caught the bits of what Jason said at the City of Auburn Council. And it's funny because I used to work there, and I worked there for about 25 years or so. And I devoted my life for about 35 years in public service, but on the emergency side. So at the drop of the hat, I would sacrifice my own self to protect any child of the day. Well, actually about 40 hours a week. And then strikes me odd tonight that all of the people that's what we're about. Somehow or another, what Jason said was transformed into something that probably is not. I think that if you subtract the religion out of it, if you subtract your preference out of it, you subtract the school policies out of it, the root was child sacrifice and endangerment to a child. And nobody that spoke tonight that I hear I didn't hear one person say that they would protect the child at all costs. And that to me strikes me odd. Anyway, that said, congratulations to your new achievement. And I wish the best for all of you in your school governing adventures. And I wish the best for all of you out here. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Stick with us tonight.
Greg Holt, I'm so sorry. I just would like to make one. I forgot to acknowledge Jackie Weston, and we are a major part of the chamber. AUSD was, I'd show up to a lot of chamber meetings, and without getting teary-eyed, there will be a ceremony on the 15th for Jackie Weston. But I just wanted to take a moment as a board to acknowledge the impact that she did have on our community, on our businesses. And again, once again, we were a member of that chamber, so she had an impact on what we did as well. And I just wanted to thank her and acknowledge her.
Thank you, Jamie. All right, folks. Thank you for sticking with us. And with that, it is 10:33 and this meeting is adjourned.